The story begins as we see that a half-naked masked man just defeated a monster. A creepy girl that probably had a few too many energy drinks watched nearby and celebrates that the Dark Lord was defeated. The luchador-looking guy proudly watches as the beast vanishes and the sun emerges from behind the clouds. His name is Sunraku, and the weird girl once again praises the warrior. She points out how it's been a long hard journey, and Sunraku couldn't agree more. Sunraku then surprisingly takes to the sky and exclaims that it's time for Faeria to go with the Dark Lord. He then does her a huge favor by rearranging her hideous face with his foot and tells her that she's the real menace in this world. We see that Sunraku was actually in a game. He proudly proclaims that he finally beat it and also managed to get revenge for everything that Gargoyle put him through. In this world, display-based games are considered retro and fully immersive VR games have become the norm. Beneath the small number of works of significance lies a massive pile of releases whose games designs don't live up to their improved graphics technology. These games are known as trash games, although most people rightfully despise trash games. There are those who gleefully seek them out, and these people are called freaks. Our protagonist named Rakuro is one of these freaks, and he proclaims that rumors were true and the game he just played was a giant pile of garbage. Rakuro compares the feeling he gets from beating a trash game to how a convict feels when finishing up her prison sentence. This psycho then wonders what trash game he will try next, and we learn that he is known as the Trash Game Hunter. When he heads downstairs, we learn that his mom is kind of a weirdo too, as Rakuro tells her that one of her butterflies got out. At school, some random girl stalks Rakuro and practices what she plans to say to him. She decides to ask about video games and waits for the perfect moment, but some other kid beats her to it. At a game shop, the owner named Mana Iwamaki hopes that summer vacation will help bring her more business. Rakuro's stalker named Rei Saiga arrives at the shop. Mana knows exactly why she is there, but tells Rei that Rakuro isn't there today. Rei is too shy to admit to it, but Mana points out how nice it must be to be young and in love. Mana explains that Rakuro has been busy trying to crack an extra special trash game, so he hasn't been there in a while. She shows her the game called Faeria Chronicle Online. It states that it's a legendary trash game. All the allies in the game have terrible AI, enemy attack patterns don't make any sense, and there are an absurd number of bugs in the code. The game is also extremely hard. Serious skills are needed even just to beat the first boss, so it has caused tons of players to rage out of control, throwing their headsets like lunatic degenerates. On top of all that, she has also heard that players have to fight the final boss and board shorts and a mask. Just then Rakuro arrives looking for any new trash games that might have come out. He makes his way to the counter, and we learn that Rei is an absolute coward as she instantly disappears. Mana is shocked to see him there, and Rakuro proudly announces that he beat Faeria Chronicle Online. Rei watches from around the corner like the stalker she is and hears Rakuro explain that the game was a spectacular pile of garbage. The worst part about it was the female lead Faeria. She's the cause of pretty much every problem he ran into on the journey. She makes every situation worse and gets villagers and party members killed. She also never suffered any consequences for anything, since you would always find a way to blame it all in the last boss, even though the boss didn't do anything and she was a problem all along. Rakuro continues to trash the trash game as he explains that if he ever gave Faeria even the tiniest little shove to vent his annoyance, she would just get upset. She would not go with them anywhere and refuse to move the story along. The autosave Word document to the state of affairs, and it would take 3 hours to get back in the cycle's good graces. Mana's surprised that he didn't just give up, which makes sense since he would be able to get an actual life, but he explains that that's how they get you. In the 3 minutes between beating the final boss and before the credits start rolling, you can beat the snot out of the crazy girl without fear of retaliation. Rakuro points out the irony, since the more Faeria annoys you, the more determined you become to brave all the garbage to experience the 3 minutes of heaven. This guy clearly takes trash games way too seriously, as he states that when that moment of bliss finally comes, it's as if all his frustrations are wiped away. In that moment, he felt like he understood why he was put on this earth. For some reason, Rei is smiling like a creep while hearing this, and Rakuro explains that the trash game was too good. Now he can't think of what to follow it up with. Mana comes up with the absurd idea to not play a trash game for once. She explains that experiencing the lows in life can help appreciate the highs, but the reverse is also true. Mana then introduces him to the game Shangri-La Frontier, the fully immersive VR game with over 30 million players. She continues to convince them and gives Rei a not-so-subtle wink for some reason. She explains that it can be fun to try things designed for mass appeal now and then. Rakuro seems to give it some serious thought. Back home, we find that Rakuro's dedication to his gaming experience reaches dangerously high nerd levels as he studies the history of the game. He finds that Shangri-La Frontier aka SLF on in the market less than a year ago, and instead of Guinness World Record for simultaneous player logins, the concept is a colony fleet that came from space died out but not before leaving a new society behind. Thousands of years later, the PCs are living their lives at roughly medieval tech levels. This piece is interesting as it's a setup that allows for effortless inclusion of sci-fi elements. Rakuro seems to be getting convinced, since unlike Faeria, which is so bad the hitters find themselves desperately searching for redeeming features, this game is so beloved that his few haters are completely drowned out by tens of thousands of fans. Rakuro puts down his gamer fuel and decides to try the game out. We then learn a bit about the company that made the game, called Utopia Entertainment Software. It was founded by the genius programmer Tsukuyo Tsukuri, who developed a fully immersive VR game system. It's a leader in the fields of software development, hardware, and internet service provision. Rakuro puts on his virtual reality headset and wonders how long it's been since he played something that wasn't trash. The game begins with character creation and Rakuro amazed by how many options there are for classes. He chooses a twin-blade mercenary for its flexibility and then moves on to origin. He reads that wanderers build defense slowly but get bonuses to luck. Luck affects critical chance and item drop rate, so he decides to go with that. Things begin to get really exciting when he finds how many options there are to character customization, as it allows him to even change race and body type. He makes some really strange noises as he gets a bit too excited, and he reminds himself to calm down. Rakuro realizes that he has been so poisoned by trash games that he is now getting blown away by silly small stuff. Seemingly forgetting about what he just said, Rakuro excitedly states that it's time to go hardcore on character design for the first time in forever. We then surprisingly see that his finished character design looks a bit strange, but it at least saves us the pain of having to look at his ugly face. He is not to be mistaken as a half-naked furry, since he actually has a very good reason for doing this. We learn that his playstyle consists of ignoring armor in favor of getting the best weapons possible. These weapons are costly, of course, but in SLF amazingly you're given the option to sell your starter equipment during character creation and you can make quite a profit. Rakuro thankfully he wanted to hide his face and the only option was the dumb-looking bird mask. He had no choice as it would be pretty awkward for him to play half-naked if everyone could see his face. Rakuro is the type of player who uses the same name in every game he plays, so he inputs the name Sunraku. He lays down on his bed and finally enters the game. He skips right past the prologue because who actually cares, and arrives in the world of the god tier game to find one of his kind. It flies away and Sunraku immediately impressed, since moving around feels pretty much like real life. He tests everything by running and climbing through the area and points out how much better everything feels compared to the game with the disgustingly hideous girl in it. Sunraku marvels at how large the world is and pulls out a map. He wonders why he didn't start out in a tutorial town for beginners like most games, and doesn't realize that those who choose Wanderer as their origin start out at a random point in the beginner's area. He decides to head to the starting town, but once again admires how good the controls feel. He checks his stats and acknowledges that his low defense is because of his half-nakedness, but hopes that his high luck stat will make up for it. Just then he's surprised to be attacked so soon as he encounters a goblin. Sunraku refuses to be a half-naked coward and decides that it's time to see what the game's combat engine is made of. The brave little goblin initiates the fight, but probably regrets all his life decisions as Sunraku uses a powerful attack to slice him in half. Sunraku impresses himself, but acknowledges that that goblin was just a scrub enemy in the intro. It does level him up though, and he sees that this axe can be dual-wielded. Something moves and some bushes nearby, and Sunraku thinks about how there's a lot to learn in the game, like monster weaknesses, patterns, and item drops. He states that whether it's a trash game or god tier game, everyone gets the feeling he's getting now. The elation of diving headfirst into a new world, it's something that can't be found in real life. His enemy finally emerges from the bushes and just barely misses his attack on Sunraku. The attack was extremely powerful and he acknowledges that it would have put him down if it hit him. The terrifying bunny goes in for another attack, but this time her crew blocks it and he counters while landing a critical hit. Bugs Bunny with rabies is far too determined though and continues attacking. Sunraku is disappointed with what this game has to offer, and we see that he has pierced the bunny. He explains that the bunny just kept going for his neck, so it was far too easy to figure out how to counter it. He is glad to see that he has leveled up even more, but disappointed to not see the rabbit sword as loot. Just then his stat screen reveals that he has met a certain condition and learned the skill flash counter. Apparently he can unlock skills by taking certain actions, so Sunraku takes a moment to appreciate how well designed the game is. He realizes that since the player's own skill supplements their dodges and parries, he can fight pretty well against even higher level enemies. This makes him want to try a bunch of different fighting styles. His appreciation doesn't stop there though, as Sunraku realizes that he has been playing this entire time without encountering a single bug. We then watch all the previous bugs he had to deal with, such as the hitbox bug, the clipping bug, and the infamous invisibility bug. He expresses excitement as he wasn't sure if he could enjoy a bug-free game after all this time, but it's sure now that he can really have a good time with it. Sunraku heads out in search of another rabies bunny, but suffer a moment to completely destroy an ogre. He levels up again and decides that he should probably allocate his stat points. He wishes that the Vorpal bunny would spawn more often, but realizes that it must be a rare enemy. He still managed to kill 50 of them and get his sweet-looking dual swords. He also learned some new skills, but states that only one of them is worth using. Sunraku decides to move forward though, since he's not going to gain any more levels with the scrub tier monsters around there. He has strayed too far away from the starter town, but sees that he's close to another town aptly named Second Ill. He makes his way there, but sees there a snake with ponytails is blocking a bridge. Sunraku, relieved to finally have a real challenge, and prepares to fight to stylish serpent. Don't let the poor hair design fool you. This piece is actually very powerful, as it is the area boss that is meant to be fought by a party. Sunraku takes a moment to think about all the attacks a snake usually has in games. He states that with an avatar that actually moves the way he wanted to, he doesn't need defenses to beat the boss, and he charges forward. He demands that the game give him something exciting, and we see that Sunraku is enjoying himself quite a bit. The story continues at the exit of a nearby town. Several people look at something in amazement. Their jaws drop, and we see that it's someone wearing gigantic armor. This is the starting town first Tia. The townspeople see that this person has high-level equipment and a crest from an achievement-focused clan. The clueless bunch wonder what someone like that is doing there, and we can tell by the voice that it's a girl. She checks all the names of the people in front of her and reminds herself that Sunraku gives all his characters the same name. He's in there though, which is strange since all starting players come to first Tia. Back in real life, we see that Sunraku's stalker knows no bounds, as it was her looking for him in the game. Back with her pigeon-faced hero, he begins his attack on the snake with her soul mesmerizing. It's as if it was stolen from an angel. Sunraku decides to watch its patterns and dodges a few of its attacks. The genius gamer determines that it's still a boss for beginners. Its movements are easy to read, and it won't have any instant kill moves. The glass cannon realizes that he can beat this thing without taking a hit, since even one hit would kill him anyway. Sunraku masterfully dodges another attack, but his weapon shatters. He knew its their ability was getting low, but can't believe it just broke on the first hit. He sees that Princess Ponytails has tough scales and decides that it's time to try out his sweet blood blades. Sunraku goes in for an attack while quipping that he's going to make snake fillets, but is surprised by some purple stuff spewed out by the ponytail python. His first thought is that it might be poop, but a display reveals that it's poison and he will take damage every 10 seconds. Featherface realizes that he might have underestimated the snake and its beautiful flowing head of hair. Our god of trash games tells us Snake that he has beaten trash cans with mechanics way cheaper than this, and a little poop flinging won't be enough to get him down. Sunraku thinks about how the poison deals some 1 damage every 10 seconds, which means he has about 4 minutes left, so he will need a reliable way to land critical if he wants to beat it. Our Birdman uses his bird brain to determine that criticals in this game don't trigger at random. They seem to trigger when an attack is landed in an ideal way or when an enemy is hit in the weak point. The snake isn't just fashionable, its body is covered in super tough scales, so he concludes that its weak point has to be its head. The snake, super protective of its stylish hair, blocks his attack, making Sunraku realize that landing an attack on its head won't be easy. Instead, he decides to make his own weak point and uses the move Screw Pierce to pierce its body. He continues to attack the hole he made, and this absolute god gamer states that the defensive properties of a wounded section change, allowing criticals to trigger there. The snake dramatically screams in pain with this beautiful head of hair flowing through the wind like it's in a shampoo commercial. Sunraku hacks away as his time is running out, but he has no clue how much HP the snake has and isn't sure if he will make it. He is pushed back, and Sunraku now realizes that beating trash games online made him pretty cocky. When he initially entered this mass appeal game for casuals, this cocky peacock thought that he would be able to know his things easily and wouldn't have to use recovery items. He was just being arrogant though, and the state consumes him. Sunraku isn't done yet and uses his flash counter move. Sunraku takes the upper hand by grabbing onto a lock of its hair that is so beautiful it rivals that of a unicorn's tail. One last piercing screw to its face causes its head to explode, and we say goodbye to the hair salon loving serpent. Sunraku couldn't be happier as he levels up after defeating the old poop snake. His look is good enough to fetch a good price, but he notices that his health is still dropping. He has no time to distribute his attribution points and just dumps it all into stamina and agility. The bird starts to fly back to town to buy an antidote but realizes he doesn't know where the shops are and is certain he won't make it in time. He can't even register his respawn point since he doesn't know where the ends are yet, but he has no choice but to run as fast as he can like he's on a wild goose chase. At the time, we see that a guy named Reiji is ecstatic that after 3 months of trying, he finally got the girl he's crushing on to start playing as a left with him. Her name is Mia. This Romeo has maneuvered himself into the role of the advice-giving veteran and won't let this chance pass him by. Unfortunately, his intimate encounter is interrupted by a raging lunatic and Mia thinks that it's a monster. Reiji points out that it has a name, so it must be a player. This crazy girl thinks she should kill it anyway, but Reiji points out that killing other players puts the skull in front of your name. The murderous psychopath considers it but decides against it, and they wonder if the bird got hit with a poison poop. Reiji tells him where the inn is, but explains that the respawn point will only register once he gets in bed. At the inn, the receptionist is talking way too calmly as she points out all the amenities they have to offer, so our frantic hero rushes her. Sunraku finally makes it to his bed to register his respawn point, but the poison hasn't been cured and he dies. Sunraku returns to reality where he is disappointed to have died, but glad he didn't lose any items. He decides that he will have to thank the guy that helped him, but for now just appreciates how awesome the game SLF is. Our god of trash games eventually arrives in Secondal in search of necessities like a map and recovery items. The bird thinks he should buy a powerful main weapon to help him reach his goal of hitting the top player ranks, but soon realizes that perverts are staring at him for being half naked and he makes the right decision by going to get clothes first. He just gets the cheapest clothes he can buy since it's only to keep people from looking at him weird, but then strangely decides that his bird head is less weird looking than a mask. At a weapon shop, Sunraku doesn't like what it has to offer and the weapons or guy points out the Sunraku's bunny daggers are actually very rare. Sunraku becomes excited however when the man explains that he can make him weapons but he would have to get the materials. Our little pigeon wastes no time and Inslee has Swan area with plenty of ore. However, he gets his feathers all flustered as he just ends up mining stone after stone. He is frustrated since he has been swinging his pickaxe for at least 30 minutes but only has 2 of the 6 pieces of ore he needs. As if he didn't have enough to worry about with all the mud and heavy pickaxe, an annoying frog appears to do what frogs do. This poor frog messed with the wrong bird. This little frog swims in the mud like it thinks it's swimming in the Olympics, and it has its innocent little heart set on first place. Sunraku thought they could coexist since it wasn't that dangerous, but determined that the frog clearly wants to be turned into materials, his attack knocks the innocent little frog back, so he goes in to finish it off. He knows that the frog has slash resistance since his suit is made from its skin, and decides that he can only use bludgeoning piercing attacks. His ex is perfect for this, but his father's got all ruffled again when he realizes that the marsh's mud slows down a player's movement significantly. The poor little frog meets its demise at the hands of her beak-faced hero, but it was so easy for him that it didn't even cheer him up. Sunraku notices that more new players have been showing up lately because of summer break and determines that he must beat everyone to the race for materials. Afterwards, Sunraku, amazed, is the shop owner with all his ore. He's told that one of the pieces is really special and has 2 blades made from it. After some time they are ready and he finds out that they are god-tier weapons. This very helpful blacksmith states that doing something called raising a weapon is very important. Raising turns out to just mean upgrading, but it's a term used by blacksmiths that take their job way too seriously and think of the weapons they make as their children. Sunraku can think about is how the blacksmith is an NPC, but its speech and mannerisms are amazing. The NPC tells them not to leave town in armor like he is while it's dark, since nocturnal animals are dangerous. Little does he know our crazy bird friend is up to the challenge and plans to use those dangerous nocturnal animals to break in his new weapons and pal up some more levels. Back at the bridge we see that the snake has risen from the ashes like a phoenix with its hair more dazzling than 1,000 suns. Unfortunately, it is met by a powerful attack from Rei, who continues her search for Sunraku. This stalker detective searched the entire beginner's area for him but determined that he must have defeated the snake without stopping by town and is now in Secondia. She wonders if a new player could really accomplish such a thing but is confident that if anyone could it would be Sunraku. Elsewhere, our better-loving birdie fights Gollum from the Lord of the Rings and he goes over everything he has learned. First, monster spawns change based on if it's day or night. Most nocturnal monsters are aggressive and dangerous, as a weapon seller said that has helped him to make progress leveling up and to learn some new skills. However, this particular little beast seems a little too powerful. This one's movement and attacks are on a whole other level from the forest goblins. It's got lots of HP and incorporates feints into his fighting style like it's been doing it all its life, like it's fighting for Freedom Ring. Just then the little goblin that's not a crazy sounding battle cry and calls all its little goblin buddies. As if fighting one wasn't bad enough, now he has to face several, and he determined that he would have to run at full speed just to have a chance of getting away. However, just then Sunraku snaps himself out of that mentality and reminds himself that he's enjoying himself far too much to just run away. Sunraku may be a bird, but he is no chicken and takes on the challenge as he defeats the annoying little goblins. Sunraku thinks about how he has just been having a lot of fun this entire time and telling himself that God tier games are pretty neat. However, this game has much more to offer. It is in this very moment as a gigantic ferocious monster appears. The Sunraku encountered the true Shangri-La frontier. Sunraku can't believe his eyes as he learns that it's a unique monster, and he braces himself for the fight of his life. The story continues. The time is currently early in the morning in the real world, and we get to see Rei's room where she is secretly in love with her Rakuro aka Sunraku. As we pass by the teddy bear in her room, we see that she is still playing Shangri-La Frontier, probably still looking to find Sunraku in the endgame world. That actually seems to be the case as the scene shifts to show the Shangri-La Frontier world, where Rei is investigating two players about some Sunraku's whereabouts. These two players, Reiji and Mia, are the ones who actually briefly saw Sunraku when he was trying to find a respawn point a few days ago. Reiji tells Rei that they have indeed seen him but unfortunately aren't in any contact with him. Mia gets hostile after seeing Rei's gigantic figure and takes out her bow and arrow, assuming she is a monster, but Reiji stops her just in time and explains to her that Rei is a player and not a monster. But Mia doesn't believe him as she doesn't think such a scary looking creature can be an actual player. So Reiji takes his time to explain to her that once the players get more experienced and veteran-like, they end up looking bulky and strong like Rei. Speaking of Rei, she doesn't seem to care whether other players think she is scarier or not, and she asks Reiji if he knows where Sunraku is gone, although Reiji isn't sure since he is very intimidated by Rei. He elaborates on the time when he saw Sunraku running inside the town when he was poisoned by the Python boss, learning that Sunraku is in the second town. It's as if Rei almost doesn't believe it as she cannot imagine her being so close to her crush. She also can't crash as to how Sunraku was able to beat the ravenous Python boss without even visiting Starter Town and using the starter gear regardless. She thanks both Reiji and Mia for giving her this critical information and gives them an item named Teleport Coordinator as a gift in exchange. Now that the formalities are done, Rei takes her leave in a hurry and leaps away from there literally at the speed of light. After she goes out of sight, Mia asks Reiji if he has any clue who she is. According to what Reiji knows, he recognized the emblem on Rei's cape, and that emblem belongs to a clan or a guild that focuses on fighting a unique monster like kicking the Night Slayer. Apparently unique monsters are a special class of monsters with both a name and a title. Most monsters, when beaten, are captured respawned after a certain time passes, but in the case of unique monsters, there is only one of each in the whole Shangri-La Frontier world. According to some speculations, there are 7 unique monsters in Shangri-La Frontier, and much information is not known about them. For each of these unique monsters, who are also known as colossi because of their colossal shape and size, the top players have formed clans focused on taking them out, and Rei, a member of one of these 7 clans, is the one who focuses on the colossi Lycagon. Speaking of Lycagon, our main character has conveniently run into that same colossi and is probably about to die his worst death in a game while he is getting his butt kicked. Reiji elaborates more about the unique monsters to Mia, telling her that even though the game has over 30 million players, not a single person has been able to defeat one single colossi, and that record isn't going to happen just because this newbie is the main character. As the clouds clear up from the skies, the moon gives better lighting and reveals what this unique monster looks like. Sunraku beds his balls that if he takes one hit from this colossi is good as death, but still he doesn't back off from the fight, as he wishes to see what this game is actually about. And as the colossi comes charging right at him with a paw attack, Sunraku blocks it with his dagger and takes the fight head on. He makes it clear that he isn't backing down, and that gets colossi more interested in killing him. As it prepares for another charge, Sunraku makes a bluff, saying that it won't even take a breather for him to kill this beast, even though his facial expressions and oversleeping say otherwise. As his heart begins to pump heavily, he reveals that he only managed to block Colossi's attack because of his skill called Perfect Parry, which lets him parry an enemy's physical attack if he executes it at the correct time. Realizing that his main dagger won't last much longer if he keeps parrying with it, Sunraku eclipses his previous red dagger and jumps straight at the colossi, dealing a critical hit. He keeps dodging around and lands another critical hit, which only infuriates the colossi even more. so it hides itself in the depths of the shadows and attacks Sunraku when he is not looking, but Sunraku still senses the attack coming from behind and dodges it without even taking a scratch, making the Colossi so enraged that it disappears in the shadows once again. As it attacks Sunraku with an even stronger attack, he also increases his own speed and keeps landing critical hits on this game-breaking monster. The Colossi keeps on playing with Sunraku and activates its hidden teleportation skill to have even better speed. Although Sunraku gets nervous this time around, he doesn't let that feeling get on top of his pure excitement and keeps pairing with the Colossi for quite a while. Although the system has shown hundreds of times now that Sunraku has dealt tons of critical hits, he still doesn't see what damage he has caused to this Colossi being. Moreover, because of all these attacks, Sunraku's second weapon has become totally chipped and has begun to fall apart, so he looks for a weak spot in the Colossi before his weapons eventually run out, but even he knows that wouldn't be possible as he is way too out of the Colossus right now, but that's what makes loner boys like him and me stand out, forcing ourselves on someone who is clearly way out of our league. Anyway, Sunraku, who actually likes being out of someone's league and loving the challenge, he gives another shout out to this god tier game, Shangri-La Frontier. The adrenaline rushes in him and he keeps on landing critical hits on the Colossi, landing a straight hit into its eyes, but instead of the eyes being a weak spot, it seems to be made of unbreakable metal as Sunraku doesn't even manage to make a scratch on it. This time the Colossi gets too enraged and roars like a wolf, as if it is trying to call its pack mates here. The Colossi roar's force is so strong that it even freezes Sunraku, who is midair. The clouds cover up the moon again and it causes the Colossi to fade away in the shadows, but it doesn't disappear and it attacks Sunraku again even more fiercely and cuts off both of his legs, stopping him from moving like a monkey. While Sunraku is still in disbelief as to how he got cut, Colossi waits for his death, and as Sunraku's health points lower to only 1, he admits that the Colossi is absurdly strong and also admits his own defeat, but Sunraku isn't the guy who is going to give up and tells Colossi that they will be meeting again soon, and at that time he will be the one who comes out as the winner. As he dies from the bite of Like again, he gets a curse applied to him called Like Higgins mark and respawns inside his inn. As he gets up, he finds many of Lycagon's marks on his body, and although it looks cool, since it's a curse, no equipment can be equipped for the body where Lycagon has made a mark, meaning no more armor from Mr. Half-Naked Sunraku. He realizes that he is completely screwed because of a curse and that his equipment has also been destroyed because he was wearing it while getting marked by Lycagon, realizing that the only way to get rid of the curse is to defeat Lycagon. Sunraku curses the game itself for a while, but as he begins to look like a weird creep again, he stops overreacting and reduces skill point division so that he no longer remains a weakling. But no matter how he rotates his points, he still remains as fragile as a glass, making him realize that because of this curse, he has become so fragile that he will die if he is hit by any monster including slime. So he instead puts all of his experience points into his luck, hoping destiny is the only thing that will save him from this hellhole, and as he does so, a rabbit appears right in front of him, guiding him to the dead end. The rabbit then shows him a hidden door and reveals that it was actually an invitation from Rabbituza. Seeing this unique scenario, Sunraku remembers that he read that this game actually has a huge number of side quests involving NPCs, and this must be one of those unique side quests. So Sunraku hopes for the best and opens the door that leads him to a weird room. He realizes that he must have unlocked this unique scenario thanks to his sudden increase in luck, but what he doesn't notice is that the minimum requirement to accept this quest is level 80. Since he is only at level 28, this only means that his luck is about to go down into the ground. Anyway, being unaware of that, Sunraku who heads to the rabbit town called Rabbituza, where every single creature is a rabbit. The rabbit that gave him an invitation welcomes him to Rabbituza and tells him that everyone in Rabbituza has become a huge fan of him overnight. Apparently his being super weak but still having the courage to fight the Colossi has caused the rabbit people of Rabbituza to become fond of him. This white rabbit claims that because of his courageous nature, Sunraku is considered to be the embodiment of a Vorpal rabbit soul, and she too hopes that one day she can be someone so daring like him. Sunraku doesn't think that he should get this much respect, as he didn't even manage to make a scratch on the Colossi. But the white rabbit Emol tells him that it doesn't matter how weak he is, what matters is how endearing he has shown himself to be. According to Emol, because of his courageous nature, even the Colossi no longer treats him as a mere pre but as a fellow being. So in light of Sunraku's great deeds, the big boss of Rabbituza has insisted on speaking with him and has requested an audience with him. Now that the explanation part is done, Emol tells Sunraku to follow her and leads him to the place where her boss is. As they enter the palace of Rabbituza, Emol tells Sunraku that he is the first one who has gotten the chance to come here, meaning that this is indeed quite a unique scenario. What's more, Emol's boss doesn't look like a cute bunny and actually has the body of a bear more or less. This leaves Sunraku completely shocked and makes him wonder why he is even here. Story continue. Back at the game shop, Mana catches Rei the stalker extraordinaire on the prowl for her not-so-secret crush Rakuro aka Sunraku. Rei tries to deny it, but the game shop owner isn't stupid and explains that it's summer vacation, so he's probably in Shangri-La Frontier. Rei admits that she hasn't been able to find her prey in-game because he skipped the first tutorial city entirely. Mana laughs as charting his own course is classic Rakuro and a typical trash game fanatic move. She explains that Rakuro will do things normal players won't do and run into all kinds of outrageous unique scenarios. Mana encourages the little stalker to step up her stalking game but surprises her when she tells Rei to admit her feelings to him. In the next scene we meet Rakuro Hizutome. She's about to begin her storyline but she leaves and we don't see her again. Meanwhile, Rakuro is reading about the trigger conditions for the Tour of Rabbituza unique scenario. He learns that if you defeat a monster of a higher level than you with Vorpal weapons equipped, a special Vorpal bunny will appear in any town and invite you to Rabbituza once you arrive. If you defeat the Laconian Python, a monster terrorizing their city, you'll learn the enchant Vorpal spell. The beginning part was right, but Rakuro explains that the rest of his unique scenario that happened the day before was nothing like that. He definitely didn't end up wrestling any pythons, instead it was the intimidating Yakuza boss looking bunny, the sort of cuddly terror you would expect if the mob started to recruiting and petting zoos. A look back shows that Vice complimented Sunraku on his fight against the puppy. He admires Sunraku's Vorpal soul, but Sunraku can't help but be intimidated and wonders what in the world is a Vorpal soul. That Yakuza bunny then makes him an offer he can't refuse, the offer to get him up to snuff. Sunraku pretty confused at first, but then realizes that this must be a training quest and unique scenario training could yield the amazing buffs. He quickly accepts the offer but almost gets himself whacked when he calls Vice Ashinaki as it made him very angry. Sunraku explains that it was just a little joke, but the giant Bugs Bunny on steroids doesn't say a word. Luckily for Sunraku, Vice has a sense of humor as he doesn't call a hit on him and lets out a big laugh instead. He acknowledges Sunraku as his underling and asks him to call him Vash. This is a privilege only given to those with potential, and Sunraku accepts as he thinks about how he is glad that they see Yakuza Bunny didn't have him swimming with the fishes. Vash tells them more than excited Emol that he will leave her curl in his hands, which of course the weird little bunny loves, and he promised to work super hard. Emol excited to take Sunraku on a tour of the palace, but Sunraku explains that he needs a break after a long playing session, but instead he thinks about how he also wants to look up more about unique scenarios and unique monsters. Sunraku glad to hear that he can register his respawn point there, and Emol offers to take care of it. Vash remembers that he forgot one thing and puts a Vorpal Soul collar on Sunraku. Sunraku is shocked to find that the collar gains 2.5 times the stat points when leveling up, but will only receive half the experience. He instantly tries to take it off, but Vash explains that it's no use. He won't allow Sunraku to take it off since extraordinary hardship is necessary for the weak to grow strong. He then reminds Sunraku to never forget the Vorpal Soul. The goofy little bunny tells him that it looks great on him, but Sunraku just can't believe that he has been saddled with another restriction. Back to the present, Rakuro acknowledged that even if it does have his experience, getting 2.5 times the staff points is a pretty big upside. It might even be a broken cheat code. No one on the forum seems to know about Vice or Emol, let alone the Vorpal Soul collar. No one's even found a unique scenario where you entered the Palace of Rabbituza. He gets super hyped as he realizes how amazing it is to have found a unique scenario only he knows about. Unfortunately, he has an appointment with someone named Katsuo and loads up a game he hasn't logged into in forever. It's called Berserk Online Passion, or as some people calls it, Borp. It's a fighting game he once got deeply into, and naturally this means that it's a trash game. Its player base has waiting to less than 100 signings per day, leading many to wonder why the server is still running. This means that most of those who remain playing the game know each other. They're all of single-kind trash game enthusiasts. Sunraku meets with Katsu and asks for the rules of the fight. The fight begins though as Katsu does his best impression of Luffy without a straw hat and reminds Sunraku that anything goes. Katsu shows him his new move he worked out while Sunraku was focused on Foley Online that he calls NSFW Tentacle Attack. Sunraku surprises see that Tattoo developed a new glitch and wonders how a madman like him got to be a pro gamer. Katsuo is shocked since he is using a delay, but Sunraku is still somehow managing to block his attack. Katsu calls Sunraku the real madman for having such fast reaction speed, and Sunraku points out that his quick draw fist is the ultimate fighting style. He explains that as long as he has 12 frames, he can even counter boss insta-killer attacks unscathed. The two continue their fight that looks like something right out of One Piece, and people around begin to take notice. Though Borp is considered a trash game, their fight perfectly demonstrates the reason for Borp's niche appeal, and that is that any bug goes. Their Gatling gun punching continues, and Sunraku celebrates when he breaks off one of Katsuo's fists. Unfortunately, this ends up being bad for him as that fist ends up ending the fight. Sunraku can't believe that the after-image fist textures were part of the hitbox, and he has announced the loser. Still, Sunraku thinks Katsu, as he has only been fighting NPCs recently and needed a good PvP. Katsu hoped that Sunraku was telling a bad joke when he learned that he was playing SLF, but Sunraku takes no shame in admitting that he is actually really into it. His little friend still doesn't understand, so Sunraku explains SLF has crazy strong monsters called the Seven Colossi. They are so rare that the entire player base has only managed to get the names of 4 of them. No one has ever beaten a single one of them since the game started. Sunraku reveals that he found one of these beasts and it wasted him. With that, Katsuo was convinced and he decides that he might to give SLF a try. Hearing Sunraku talk about it has piqued his interest, and he admits that none of his IRL friends played Borp anyway. That isn't all, as a certain person also plays SLF, and Katsu sent this person a message to tell them that Sunraku was playing it too. Sunraku has no clue who this person is, but we see that it's some purple-haired girl. This chick is fighting a bunch of guys when she received the message, and she said she always thought Sunraku had some kind of condition where he would die if he ever stopped playing trash games. She finishes up all her opponents, and we see that she has the player kill badge for ending all those real players. She seems glad there's Sunraku playing SLF and decides that she will have to also gently guide him through it. Sunraku returns to Sekanale and thinks about how handy a mole is for being able to use a teleport gate. He feels pretty good and wonders if coming from playing Borp is the reason that his SLF avatar is so easy to move in. Emol wonders where Sunraku wanted to leave so soon since there is so much to do in Rabbituza. Sunraku explains that while he really wants to explore Rabbituza, getting to Third Rima before the crowds are pouring in is more important. There has been a huge uptick in players since summer break started. The forums report that the Star Town First Tia is packed to the gills with new players. Sekanale won't be far behind, which means there are going to be logjams at facilities and fights over monsters and mining spots. Also, Third Rima is a pretty big city, so if he's going to go all out in the Rabbituza unique scenario, then he would like to do it from a big city with plenty of breathing room. Emol completely agrees, but Sunraku to hear that Emol hilariously didn't understand a single thing. Emol is still more than glad to help, and Sunraku is shocked to find that he can add NPCs in his party. Emol explains that Sunraku can't retry Rabbituza or the palace without him, but Sunraku thought that the little free NPC would just be tagging along. Sunraku accepts Emol party request and finds that the little bunny has higher stats than he does. He's too concerned about it though, since he is confident that he will pass Emol no time. Sunraku pretty sure that the Lycagon's mark is the trigger for that unique scenario, and wonders if Emol is the game's way of making up for it. The two prepare to head out, but are stopped by 2 girls who think that the talking little bunny is adorable. They want to know if they can get it as a pet 2 per shot to realize that Rakuro was one half-naked bird pervert. Sunraku realizes that he was so distracted that he didn't stop to think about how Emol's NPC attached to a never-before-seen unique scenario. Since he has it all to himself for now, he would like to keep it a secret at least until he can clear it. The dumb little bunny introduces himself and tries to chat it up with the ladies. However, Sunraku stops him and yells out that it was just his ventriloquism act as he runs away. Unfortunately for him, one of the nosy girls takes a picture of them and decides that they will have to ask the forums where to get one of the talking bunnies. The two get away from all the crowds, and Emol admits to not being the high-level athlete looks like, as he is not so well suited for all the running around. Emol eagerly awaits her next task, and Sunraku explains that he wants to confirm something. He wants to test the part of his curse that says that monsters over lower level than the afflicted character will flee. Luckily for them, a lower-leveled monster appears to attack them, and it runs away as soon as it sees the curse. This is perfect, as Sunraku chases after it like some kind of bird-cheetah hybrid. A brilliant gamer doesn't just pursue it mindlessly though, as he has a plan to chase it into an obstacle. With perfect timing, Sunraku throws his weapon as soon as it changes direction. With it stopped, Sunraku attacks it with the fastest speed he can muster. Sunraku points out that he received an attack bonus from inertia and law of physics taken for granted in the real world, and very few games actually try to replicate it. He admires how this game models reality as close as it can, and Emol arrives to celebrate with intense energy as always. He admires Sunraku's fighting skills, as he could hardly tell which one was the monster. With Sunraku test complete, he has decided what needs to be done now. The plan is to ignore all the scrubs and head straight to the area boss. Emol marvels at the plant's simplicity, and the two take off excited to take on whatever the future holds. Unfortunately, just seconds later we see that Sunraku is extremely frustrated. They have arrived at the area where the boss should be, but there's only swamp as far as the eye can see. The little rabbit is just worried about his sweet-looking clothes, and Sunraku thinks about what Emol told him on the way there. Emol explained that the area boss is a monster named Mud Digger. Sunraku try out of the ground to attack, so it's crucial to find a way to hold it in place. Sunraku realizes that he has to fight this Mud Digger in a swamp. That means he might be in big trouble. Just then, Emol senses the beast, and Sunraku has Emol get on his shoulder. It's incredibly difficult to move in the swamp, so they just barely manage to move out of the way as a giant monster emerges. We learn that a characteristic of Shangri-La Frontiers is that its swamp terrain forces a walking state. This means that one leg always remains trapped in the muds until the other foot reaches the bottom. This ferocious beast is clearly very powerful, as a recommended party size for fighting it is 4. Sunraku realizes that he might have made a huge mistake, as this is the worst matchup possible. That brings the episode to an end. Story continues. The ferocious beast is strangely able to dive into the shallow swamp, which is only possible because of game logic, and Emol freaks out fearing that they will be skinned alive. However, Sunraku smoothly uses his slide move to narrowly avoid death. He acknowledges that figuring out how to use the skills that evolved after fighting the Leica gun is the key to this battle. His evolution of the move Perfect Parry is the Rebel Counter, which allows him to instantly counter-attack after timing his parry perfectly. Emol is pressed, but Sunraku isn't satisfied since he is pretty much just evading damage. Both skills he just used have 10-second recast times, and he has no other way to avoid damage in the meantime. The beast gives him no breaks, but luckily his little bunny friend comes in clutch with an impressive attack. Emol explains that it was just a bit of magic, and Sunraku realizes that he has been so focused on soloing this game that he completely forgot he had a partner this time. Sunraku knows he can't waste this opportunity, so he uses an ability that grants a temporary bonus to attack power and agility. Unfortunately, trying to move quickly in the swamp sucks big time. The beast recovers, but this caused Sunraku the opportunity to use the evolution of his Screw Pierce attack called Spiral Edge. Another ability gets them in a more advantageous position, and Sunraku does a balancing act, only possible because of his experience in trash games that have terrible platforming. He has his little bunny friend prepare an attack, and there's the ferocious beast to eat him. It tries to, but 10 seconds have passed already, and he uses Repel Counter to avoid it. Emol follows that up with a powerful attack, and we see just how much of a glass cannon Sunraku is, as a tiny bit of fall damage takes a large portion of his health. Sunraku praises his free teammate, but she is just concerned about her sweet threads. Sunraku is confident that the beast must be pretty hurt, but he was shocked when it's nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, the ground begins to shake, and Sunraku feels like his feet are being sucked down. They realize that the shark whale thing is preparing to rocket out of the ground for an attack, and Sunraku doesn't even hesitate to save his little friend. Sunraku is surprised to have been thrown into the air, since it wasn't an insta-kill attack and in fact barely did any damage. We learn that the Mud Digger is most noteworthy for its special move set that activates after its HP reaches a certain threshold. After holding a player in place with the vibrating swamp, it randomly runs one of them in the air with its nose. If a player challenges it alone, not only will it hit them with this attack every single time as long as they remain in the swamp, but it will shave down all their HP through fall damage. Hence its nickname, the Solo Killer. Sunraku realizes this and hits the person who came up with it. Since player skills are not even a factor, he considers having Emol hit him from the side, but knows that will just blow him up. Sunraku prepares for his inevitable death and explains that he has never been able to get used to falling deaths in VR games. Luckily for him, our little bunny hero is no quitter, and she has an unrivaled Vorpal spirit. She uses a magic scroll to teleport Sunraku, but instead of getting to safety, she accidentally puts him back in the air. We learn that there is an attack skill called Meteor Fall that utilizes downward energy. Sunraku had picked up a ton of downward momentum from his initial freefall and built up a lot of energy. Emol's accidental teleportation actually put them just above the beast and allowed Sunraku to gain even more energy, so a fall that would have resulted in player death. Instead is now a risky attack. This is not an actual meteor fall but a mistake meteor fall. The creature instantly blows up into smithereens and Sunraku in complete disbelief to see that he actually survived. He can't even digest all the things that just happened, so he just compliments Emol for her clutchness. Sunraku acknowledges how tough the fight was, comparing it to when he fought the like again, but this time they were the survivors. Afterward, Emol shocked to see Birdhead shove a bunch of healing herbs down his throat, and Sunraku points out that it's the only way anything can reach his mouth because of his giant beak. Sunraku can only think about how Emol was way stronger than he expected. She ended up carrying him, so he feels pretty bad for being so cocky before. Emol can only think about how Sunraku will be staying in Rabbituza full-time once they reach the big city. The only problem is that Emol, as seen, will draw a lot of attention like last time, and they might even get jumped. They need to think of a way to hide her, so our little bunny determines that she must use something she hasn't in a long time. She reveals her mysterious Vorpal bracelet, the secret treasure of the verbal bunnies. The secret of Little Bunny asks her human counterpart to keep it a secret and shockingly transforms into a human. Sunraku's speechless and is upset as he begins to realize that Japan's so-called flagship god-tier game is starting to look like some kind of harem game with a bunny girl. The transformation is pretty exhausting for the little rabbit though, so she can only hold it for 4 or 5 minutes at a time in her current state. Her transformation will work just fine to hide her, but it could bring different attention when people see a poor girl dragging around half-naked birdmen. They finally arrive at Thirdrama, where Emol points out how unimpressed Sunraku seems. Birdface proudly points out that he has seen quite a few places in his time, and she is amazed by how well-traveled he is. Emol transforms, but Sunraku's proven right about him being the attention getter when some guards stop them to ask why he is half-naked. They are also pretty curious about his body being covered in scars, but Emol comes to Sunraku's defense. She states that Sunraku has a past that will bring immense sorrow to all those who hear it. Emol tells the story of his dangerous journey in the most dramatic way possible, a story highlighting the curse Sunraku has on his body and his journey to remove it. Emol gets even more intense as she explains that this is only the first chapter in this story. The second chapter will have him transform into a super warrior. This chick is way too intense for the guards, and they just allow them in. Out of the entire crowd that has gathered to watch Emol's theatrics, Sunraku notices someone giving him a look, and it's far different than the normal judgmental look he usually gets for being a half-naked bird face. Before they can enter the city, a girl urgently stops Sunraku as she recognizes him. Sunraku has no clue who this frantic girl is, but we see what happened after those girls in Secondale took their picture. The girls posted the picture on a forum and asked if anyone knew how to befriend the adorable bunny. The post spread rapidly as people were shocked to hear that a monster could talk, and almost equally as shocked to see a half-naked birdman. The silvered-haired girl was more shocked than anyone. She was certain that the game only allowed players to tame dogs and cats, and determined that the bird must be cheating. As people questioned the ethics behind posting a picture of someone without their consent, the silvered-haired girl begins her mission to find the pigeon man. Other people were paying more attention to Rakuro on the picture. Many have not seen scars like his, especially since nothing like them exists and the character maker. Someone on the forums remembered is that it's a curse that also serves as proof that the player has been acknowledged by the Night Emperor. This is only known though because some NPC mentioned it. Players are stunned to realize that this means Sunraku has encountered the Lycagon. Some players know that the Lycagon is a random encounter, so it is possible for a beginner to run into it. No one can figure out how this Sunraku guy managed to get acknowledged by it. A player named Orsalot responds on the forums, saying that he could spawn kill Sunraku until he tells him how to do it. Other players think about how dangerous this Orsalot guy is, as he is the esteemed leader of a Shurikai, a clan infamous for being filled with player killers. Orsalot has eyes set on Sunraku, so other players wonder if the Birdman will be okay. People discuss on the forums how if you player kill too much and you get killed by a player or NPC, all your items are lost, including stored ones. On top of that, the bounty gets paid from the player killer's own cash, so it's a pretty brutal system. One red-headed lady is particularly intrigued by Sunraku and leaves a message on the forums with the hopes of him reading it. She tells him to speak to any player wearing the emblem of a wolf and a sword, as she would love to meet and talk with him. She expresses sorrow for him having so much of his information leaked, but explains that her Seiger clan can help protect him. Other players can see that several clans are showing interest in the now famous Sunraku and point out how he is being treated like an event boss. The crazy silver-haired girl is the first to find him though, and she just wants to know how to tame a Vorpal bunny. While news of him has spread rapidly, this is Sunraku's first time hearing about it. He realizes it must have been from Second Ale, but there's no way he's spilling the beans on the Vorpal Bunny unique scenario. Just then, their conversation is interrupted by a surprise attack. The attacker says that it's not nice to keep things to himself and everyone should share in the fun. This girl shocks for Sunraku when she calls him Revolutionary Knight Sunraku. Sunraku seems to know her as he states that the Great Pencil Knight has finally shown her face. This girl doesn't like how he is talking to a self-proclaimed beauty like herself and explains to him that in this game she is not Pencil Knight. She shockingly removes her mask and tells him to refer to her as Arthur Pensilgan. Sunraku is stunned to see that she is not only level 99 but she also has the skull badge for being a player killer. Story continues. Sunraku refers to this person as his friend and trash gamer Hood. A flashback shows some guys robbing a shop in a game called Unite Rounds. These fools thought they were scot-free, but our boy Sunraku found them and robbed the robbers. The players affectionately called this trash game a post-apocalyptic looting simulator. The game was originally meant to simulate a kingdom on the verge of collapse, with players assuming the role of knights who protected from attacking monsters, a co-op MMOVR game. However, because of truly garbage game design that prioritized faithfulness to the concept, the drop rates were unreasonably low. Only a few players would ever dare to play this game the right way. Even the beginner's quest required 12 hours of coming through open fields to complete, and the player's eyes, this only left them with one option: steal what they need. Game rats weren't willing to spend hours picking through grass for low-level items when they could just raid an NPC store or steal them from a player who did. That eventually proved to be the winning move in Unite Rounds. In an environment where outrage is everywhere and every person you saw was an enemy, a lone figure arose filled by violence to take control of the kingdom, and that person was the Great Pencil Knight. One day Sunraku was looting corpses and cats who tried to point out that the game was supposed to be about defending the kingdom from monsters. However, Sunraku explained that the game is now really about defeating the big bad Pencil Knight. Pencil Knight was nothing like the final boss built into the game story. She would intentionally abuse players who she didn't allow into her ranks and instigate her victims to prevent them from giving up on the game. At this time, the game of Unite Rounds was completely at the mercy of one player, the one known as the Dystopian Empress. Sunraku cast on plan to assassinate her, and she is shocked to see them and realize that a rebel army was used as a distraction. Our boys are pretty confident to have gotten this far and tell her that she should have said some more effective traps. The ones she said were so easy that they broke them on the first try. This is their first time meeting, but the Empress is impressed and plans to remember their names. The Pencil Knight is pretty annoyed by Sunraku's smirk, and she wonders if they can really defeat her to become the Revolutionary Knight. Back to the present, Sunraku thinks about how in Unite Rounds they fought each other to a draw, with both of them dying in the end. However, in this game there's a huge level gap between them. Pensilgan instantly initiates the fight and tells Sunraku that she took the penalty and came all the way from Faeria to play or kill him, so he shouldn't be ashamed if he feels like crying because of how flattered he is. Pensilgan is not only a good trash talker, she's a dangerous fighter also, as Sunraku must block daggers that he predicts are poisonous. She knows that Sunraku just beat the mud digger and assumes that he's around level 30, so she compliments him on his impressive dodging skills. However, referral credits the gods or game for making all his moves come nice and smooth. The crazy silver-haired girl is shocked while watching the fight when she realizes that Pensilgan is second in command of that one-player killer clan Ashurakai. She is known as the Giant Killer. Pensilgan explains that she got the nickname from constantly focusing on ambushing higher-level players. Unfortunately, the devs need a ruthless strategy, so it's been a lot harder for her recently. Sunraku is quick to point out how she was the giant in the last game, and the two have a good laugh about the irony. The lighthearted moment doesn't last long though, as Pensilgan continues attacking and calls our bird-headed hero a bird brain, and Mole realizes something while watching but doesn't say anything and just freaks out in the background. As Pensilgan continues her relentless attack, she reveals that she didn't just find him for personal reasons. The leader of her clan, Ashurakai, has her to deliver a message. The leader wants Sunraku to make the information of the unique scenario public, otherwise he will have a target on his back until he does. Our boy does not like being threatened. He thinks this leader of her sounds like a dummy, and Pensilgan actually agrees. Sunraku does his best to fight back, but he knows that there's far too much of a gap in their levels and equipment. However, he has realized something. Sunraku points out that it seems like Pensilgan is trying pretty hard to keep him away from the gate. He is also certain that she timed that first attack of her is to prevent him from entering the city. He determines that it must be hard for a player killer to do their thing in a highly populated town, and she reveals that she would certainly prefer to avoid it. None of the talking really matters to her though, since she is certain that he won't be making it to the gate alive anyway. Just then we see Emol freaking out about this whole time as her bunny tail reappears and she can't hold it in any longer. She will soon transform back to a Vorpal bunny, but she has no way of telling Sunraku without anyone finding out. The chaos is mounting as the crazy silver-haired girl decides to ask for Curl's companion, but how to get the Vorpal bunny pet. She's surprised to see that Emol wearing bunny accessories, but even more shocked when Emol transforms into the Vorpal bunny she had been desperately searching for like a maniac. Sunraku notices and points out how this is the worst possible moment for this to happen. Pensilgan refuses to be ignored but is shocked, and Sunraku uses his repel counter move. He knocks her back with rage since he knows that she has been holding back, and calls Emol to his side. Our boy catches his little bunny companion, and Silverhair wishes she could at least get a selfie with the little fur ball. Sunraku explains that he will think about it if he survives his plan, and makes a mad dash towards the gate. Pensilgan is certain that Sunraku has no chance in beating her in a foot race, but is shocked when Silverhair stops her. Silverhair explains that she couldn't care less about Bird Phase, but a Pensilgan is going to put the sweet little bunny in danger, then she will slay Pensilgan in a heartbeat. Sunraku couldn't be happier, as this is what he hoped would happen. He realized that the girl named Animalia was obsessed with his furry companion, and he knew she would put herself in harm's way for her. He praises Emol for being a great mascot, as not all he has to do is get into town. Emol will make him a teleport gate to Rabbituza, and no one should be able to track him there. Sunraku's plan runs into a huge problem though, as Pensilgan explains that she never said she came there alone. Sunraku was met by a group of tough-looking players from Pensilgan's clan. They all hate the idea of having to pick a lower-level player, but they must do it, as if you're getting player killed themselves by Pensilgan if they don't. Pensilgan realizes that Animalia is the keeper of SF Zoo, a monster documenter clan with no interest in other players, and she thanks Sunraku for giving her this opportunity. Sunraku isn't even listening though, as he has his hands full trying to keep from being ended by the group. Animalia shows that she isn't just some crazy animal lover, and Alicia is a powerful spell. Unfortunately, Pensilgan consumes the attack and fires it right back at Animalia. The Pensilgan is pretty impressed, but all the status debuffs on Animalia has acquired, and Animalia is shocked because Pensilgan was able to reflect all the curses in her attack. Pensilgan reveals the amazing item that allowed her to do this, the Karmic Straw Doll. Pensilgan knows she would have been in big trouble without it and curses the thing. The item 1 crash sends all curses applied to the player back at their caster, so the cold-blooded pencil garnishes Animalia that she will stick around to watch her die of her own poison. Sunraku doing his best to stay alive against opponents who outnumber him, or a higher level than him, and have far better equipment than him. He analyzes them to determine that his best target is the jerk who uses a slow-moving longsword, since Sunraku doesn't even need skills to dodge his attacks. The real problem is how he will do damage to the high-level players decked out in top-tier armor. Things are looking pretty bad, but luckily someone has arrived to absolutely destroy one of the attackers with a single blow. Every one of the attackers is shocked as they realize that this was the unparalleled firepower of the famous attack master. Sunraku has no clue who this person is, but can't believe another person has arrived with such a dangerous-sounding nickname. However, we know that this giant armor knight is actually Sunraku's stalker Rei, and she's glad to have finally found the apple of her eye. A flashback shows how upset Rei was after not being able to find Sunraku no matter how hard she looked, and she thought about how Mana told her to confess her feelings to him. She thought about how Sunraku always played games that were so unusual and difficult. They were always too hard for her to play, so she could never find a game that she could play with him. However, that all changed with that SLF. Sunraku is finally playing it, so she refused to let her opportunity get away. When she returned to the game, she found that a message was waiting for her. It was another member of her guild, Seeger, that is also her sister. The message revealed Sunraku's location and asked for it to get into contact with him. This was Rei's first real chance to find him, so she wasted no time in rushing to him. The message also revealed that there were a number of clans already arranging to make contact with him, and the dangers of a Shurikai was among them. Rei saw him deep in battle and realized that it was a great opportunity that she would never have again. If she could save him from the Pikers, she would have a natural end to talk to him. This drove her more than anything because she's crushing on him pretty hard and knew that this could someday lead to them talking in real life. That is when she made her explosive entrance, and Pensilgan could instantly tell that things were getting intense. Pensilgan knew all along that the pikers from her clan would have a tough time against Sunraku. However, fighting him in SLF has made something even more clear to her. The skills he's built up playing terrible games in all genres are more valuable than unique items and high-level stats, and that's a huge asset in Shangri-La Frontier. She has also heard that Katsuo is playing as SLF as well, so with Sunraku some secret project of hers is looking more possible. Pensilgan is then shocked when she realizes that the person that has joined the fight is Siger Zero. Somehow Sunraku first lured in the zookeeper and now that attack master. Pensilgan is incredibly happy to have come, but an Animalia isn't done just yet, as she points out that she hit Pensilgan with 5 spells. She explains that the doll Pensilgan used tops out at reflecting 5 debuffs, and she wonders if Pensilgan has a counter for her next attack. The story continues. In the past we see Rei stalking Rakuro so hard that she runs into a pole. He was always smiling and enjoying himself, so that is why she started thinking about him. She started looking for him and eventually developed elite-level stalking skills. She tried talking to him on several occasions, but she was always too shy. Back to the present, Rei won't let her opportunity pass her by, so she comes to Sunraku's rescue. Sunraku is instantly suspicious of this giant knight, and he assumes that they're after the unique scenario just like everyone else. He knows that he needs to think of a way out, and luckily for him it looks like Animalia is preparing to do something. And Animalia's final attack requires the mastery skill and single-digit HP. This chick is just another crazy person in this anime, as she explains that her next attack is a murder-suicide curse that destroys her opponent and herself. Pensilgan has already used her doll and has no way to debuff the spell, so the two of them are eliminated. The attack causes a massive eruption of light, shocking everyone, but this is Sunraku's chance. He tells his bunny little friend to prepare a gate for them, and apologizes to the knight for using its head as a launch pad. Sunraku runs as fast as he can, and the enemy group wants to stop him from reaching the city since it's filled with bounty hunters. Unfortunately for them, Rei is too powerful and knocks them back. Sunraku still doesn't trust a giant knight, but promises to remember their name, Siger Zero. The Azurakai members are furious, but Rei is completely distracted. She can't believe the Sunraku actually talked to her, and his apology replays over and over again in her head. The Azurakai guys see this as an opportunity to earn some fame, and make an attempt to attack the attack master. Unfortunately for them, she is furious because they were the reason she couldn't talk to Sunraku more. The Azurakai members prepare to run away, but Rei doesn't let them, and she still has a lot of anger to take out on them. We then see their Sunraku and Emol have finally made it back to the inn inside of Rabbituza. Emol ran out of magic from using her transformation earlier, but luckily our MC was prepared and bought magic restoring items ahead of time. Just then Sunraku receives what he calls a sore loser email from Pensilgan. She's in disbelief that the attack master appeared from nowhere to save him, and she points out that her death was her own fault, so she didn't really lose to him. Pensilgan still wants to talk to Sunraku, so she tells him to call Katsuo, so the three of them can have a meeting in the game and unite rounds. It's a bit strange, and she doesn't just want to talk on SLF, so he is suspicious of her. Just then Katsuo emails him after he was messaged by Pensilgan as well. Katsuo shares Sunraku's skepticism, but they're both also very intrigued by what she might have to say. They decide not to back down, but for now Sunraku has bigger things to worry about. Emol finishes her delicious potion, and Sunraku eagerly explains that he is ready to get this unique scenario going. Sunraku wonders what the Mafia Rabbit boss meant by getting him up to snuff, so Emol decide to just show him by taking Sunraku to their arena, where they do their most serious battle training. They arrive at the Vorpal Coliseum, and Sunraku marvels at how huge it is. Emol reveals that her father/boss wants Sunraku to fight 10 monsters there. Sunraku was excited for this boss rush type of training, and Emol explains that he will be strictly limited to the use of Vorpal weapons. That's totally fine for our MC, and he prepares to grind levels until he can wipe the smug smirk off of Pensilgan's face. Sunraku gets a good stretch in before pulling out his Vorpal Blades of Death and has the first monster come out. Our protagonist is pretty realistic, as he doesn't expect to go 10 in a row on his first try. He plans to use trial and error to learn their attack patterns so he can slowly but truly attain victory. He is pretty shocked by his first opponent though, since it's a pack of hounds that always spawn in groups of 5 or more. Their average level is 65, so Sunraku wonders if there has been some kind of mistake. His ruthless little bunny friend explains that there's no mistake, and that's just how the first opponent works. Sunraku knows he has his hands full and is instantly wiped out by the pack. Back in the real world, Rei celebrates the fact that Rakuro talked to her and she replays the moment in her mind. That isn't enough for the little stalker though, as she reminds herself to find the courage to send him a friend request the next time they see each other. She wonders if he would accept and imagines our boy saying yes. Rei imagines that they will become friends in real life after that, and this sends her over the roof with joy. The problem is that she searched for him in Third Dreama after she was done with the goons but couldn't find him, so she wonders what he could doing. We then see what he's doing as he stares down the hounds. It's pretty clear that these hounds just think of him as food, and Emil points out that this is already Sunraku's 7th attempt. Thankfully, the penalty for dying isn't applied in the arena. However, it's not just the sheer number of these beasts and their high level that is a huge pain for a big face hero, is their completely synchronized attacks. Sunraku does his best on the 7th try and he realizes that their coordination is the result of having a commander giving orders. He has fought them enough times so he has started to see it. One of these monsters has been howling from a safe distance and never actually fights. Armed with this knowledge, our MC uses his spiral edge attack on the leader. This monster just runs away while the others rush to protect it. Their coordination gets all out of whack, so he knows that he was right. Knowing this, all Sunraku has to do is ignore the others and focus on the commander before he can bark out orders. He hunts down the leader of the pack and he matches for him when he eliminates it. With their master gone, there's really nothing left for him to fear, so he wipes out the uncoordinated bunch. Sunraku completes the first level of training and Emil celebrates her bird-faced hero. Sunraku hopes that the next round won't be another group of monsters, and Emil assure him that the next one is definitely a single opponent. He really hopes that's the case, but is shocked when he sees that the next opponent is called the Parasite Tentacle. This hideous creature is just a teddy bear with snakes coming out its back, so this makes Sunraku think that it's practically another group. Sunraku used a hit-and-run strategy against the beast tentacles. Once all the tentacles were severed, the bear stopped moving and he won. It only took him 4 tries. A really tough goblin was his 3rd opponent, but it was easier than the previous 2. This one only took him 2 tries. Some wild boar was his 4th opponent, but our MC has some in-game rodeo experience and used that to defeat it on his first try. His 5th opponent was a doozy though. It was some crazy acid-pooping bird and this thing took him 112 tries. The next few opponents were relatively easy and only took them 1 try each. Our hero's 9th opponent was some mega golem. They had some type of invisible energy shield that shipped out 70% of his HP when repelled by it. He eventually figured out that he needed to tear it down little by little, and he defeated it on his 7th try. Our MC more excited than ever as he only has 1 opponent left, but is pretty upset to see that after all that fighting, he has only gone up 2 measly levels. This is of course, because of the Vorpal Soul Collar that Flash forced onto him, which generously cuts his experience gains in half. Emil encourages the bird brain to take a break since she has noticed that Sunraku has a terrible look in his eyes. Our hero doesn't think so though and makes a funny looking face, as he states that all the optimization is going great for him. Sunraku demands that the next monster come forward and he is shocked to see that Vash come for a visit. Vash is impressed that Sunraku has already reached the final level and points out that the timing couldn't be any more perfect. Sunraku knows that there was no coincidence as he thinks about how beating the 9th monster just triggered an event flag. Vash explains that for a cross-final opponent, he will have him fight a monster that he just caught. Vash really had to go out of the way to get this monster and he sends the chained-up beast into the arena. Vash frees the creature and our MC can't figure out what kind of monster it is. He thinks it's some dummy from long ago that tried to fuse with the tree to gain a longer life. Vash observes closely and thus Sunraku can beat this monster in his current state. Because of this he changes the win criteria. This monster is apparently insanely strong, so all Sunraku would have to do to win is survive for 5 minutes. This thing is a wood mage, but Sunraku eager to prove that he can complete level. Sunraku was confident for this test of endurance, but is instantly surprised by the monster's first attack. This crazy tree thing creates roots out of nowhere and forces Recruit to run for his life. Vash explains that he is a big fan of Sunraku's confidence, but points out that he will really have to back it up now if he wants to survive. Sunraku is getting pretty stressed evading all of its attacks, and realizes that it's going to be a really long 5 minutes. Out of the over 30 million SLF players, Sunraku the first one to fight this terrifying monster. Sunraku wouldn't learn this until far in the future, but we see that this tree mage is an insane level 120. Story continues, Sunraku does his best to avoid all the roots, but they are seemingly endless. Our MC is crazy as he attempts to close the gap with the monster, even though all he needs to do is survive. Getting close doesn't do much though, since Sunraku's attack doesn't even scratch the tree branch wizard. It's pretty clear that physical attacks won't work on it, and Sunraku must now dodge this thing's chains as well. Sunraku realizes that he should just dodge his way to victory, and Emol reveals that 1 minute has already passed. 4 minutes remain, so Vash is eager to see Sunraku's Vorpal Soul. Sunraku continues to dodge away, but it's getting more difficult, and he realizes that his opponent is an absolute beast. Root Spirit's attacks are almost impossible to dodge since they are intelegraphed, and change that looks like they will destroy anything they come in contact with. As if those things weren't terrifying on their own, they also chase him around like he has a magnet to them. It's almost enough to make him give up on dodging altogether, and Emol becomes increasingly concerned for him, even with all that there's still something worse. This tree monster keeps on spelling magic attacks every now and then, some are electrical and some are fireballs. The more time passes, the more this wooden Harry Potter mixes up its magic types. This time it uses a ice spell attack, and Sunraku can hardly manage to survive at all, as the attacks seem to be getting denser as well. The number of chains and roots are increasing, and the magic attacks are starting to cover a wider area. The magical tree branch gives a menacing look, and Sunraku determines that if the densities of the attacks keep increasing, he will be dead well before he reaches 5 minutes. Just then purple mist erupts from the ground, and it's just another spell from the tree's arsenal that Sunraku has to worry about. The fight is beginning to seem futile, since this thing can nullify physical attacks and constantly adds attacks of its own. Sunraku begins to think that he would have a better chance against the Lycagon that gave him his cars, and he really begins to lose hope. He's getting so tired that he can barely even think straight anymore. Sunraku is ready to give up, return home to eat something while he thinks of his strategy and try again later. There isn't really a penalty for losing, so he doesn't really care anymore. Just then Sunraku snaps himself out of it, and reminds himself that he is in a pushover. He went through the same feeling of hopelessness against the mud digger, when he gave up and had to rely on Emol. Sunraku lets out a battle cry as he is reinvigorated, and refuses to let himself cut corners. He thinks that playing so many trash games all his life, almost turned his brain into garbage as well, but that ends now. Emol and Vash consensus something has changed, and Sunraku makes another push. He states that he has overloaded on Trash Gamium, and he's bunted out with God Gamium. Sunraku runs along a route to once again get close to the tree, and promises himself that he don't give up. Vash is impressed that he was able to break through the waves of attacks, to reach mainly range, but says that there really is no point since Sunraku can only dish out basic attacks. Sunraku shocks everyone though. When he kicks the monster staff out of his hand, Sunraku is seriously tired, so he's ready to just beat the living tree and go straight to bed. He realized that even though the monster can nullify physical damage, the attack itself still gets through. Sunraku doesn't let the tree branch cut its staff back, and he wonders what would happen to the tree if it has to fight without it. It's clear that it can't cast its spells anymore, but it still has its roots and chains. Something that Sunraku did learn from all his years of gaming is that in a post-apocalyptic world you survive by looting. He uses the snatching skills to learn from Unite rounds and grabs hold of the staff. Vash and Emol are both impressed, but there's still 2 minutes left on the timer, and this is the time when Vash wants to see what Sunraku can really do. The tree goes insane, and Sunraku realizes that losing the staff must trigger its berserk mode. The attacks are getting more intense, so Sunraku wishes he would have gotten some kind of warning. Little Emol continues cheering on our brave hero, and tells him that he only needs to survive for 1 more minute. This is exactly where Sunraku mobility build was made for, so there's no way he's going to lose after getting so close. However, one of their chains eventually grabs a hold of him, and just as he expected it applies several debuffs. He won't be able to dodge, and the tree wizard is closing in on him. Sunraku sends his staff straight into the sky, causing the tree to go after it instead. The tree finally retrieves it, but Sunraku can't believe that the monster actually fetched it. Sunraku mocks the dumb monster since the little one, if it just kept attacking, but now the time is up. He calls it a wood blockhead, but it's shocked when the monster just decides to continue attacking. Sunraku runs for his life and pointing out that the flight should be over. Luckily, Vash steps in since the 5 minutes are over, and completely deletes the monster right out of the game. Sunraku was the winner, and Vash is really impressed by his Vorpal Soul. Sunraku can't believe Vash just decimated it, and wonders how he was able to land a physical attack on it. Vash explains that it can only nullify physical attacks when it has its staff, and without its staff, it's just an animated tree. Emol arrives to celebrate, and Sunraku, excited to hear that he will now be getting his reward for completing the quest. Vash declares him an honorary Rabbituzan, but Sunraku thought winning would come with a rare item or something. Vash removes the Vorpal collar around Sunraku's neck, officially completing the unique scenario, and the little rabbits leave. Surprisingly, there's a bonus unique scenario called Vorpal Epic. However, Sunraku just upset that he didn't get a single piece of real loot and log out of the game. It's pretty late, so Sunraku decides to just get some sleep. The next morning, Sunraku reads that the recommended level for the bonus unique scenario is 80, but he's only level 31. There is lore behind the quest, but he gave up on reading it all when he was overwhelmed. There are entire clans dedicated to learning all the lore in the game, so it would be very difficult for him to do so on his own. Sunraku decides to take a break from all the unique scenario stuff. Instead, he will check out the town and head for the next area. Emol finished this up watering her plants and is ready to move forward as well. Sunraku realizes that if he goes out looking like he does, then he will surely get mobbed by pikers and info hunters again. Changing his headgear won't be enough either, since Lycagon marks would draw attention too. Emol proved to be as useful as ever and recommends that he covered his entire form. He has no clue how to do that, but she knows just the place. They go to see a little rabbit named Peets, who is actually Emol's little brother. He acquires goods and sells them in Rabbituza. He sells in other places as well, but he has to transform into a human to do it, so he doesn't do it much. The little bunny calls him a birdman, so Sunraku proves he is a human by removing his mask. Emol is shocked that he removed his mask for a moment, since she was sure that he had some deep dark reason for keeping it on all the time. Emol asked about the rare thing that Peets just found, and he goes looking for it in his inventory. Afterwards, we see that this item looks like some kind of bed sheet, and Sunraku looks like he's wearing a ghost costume on Halloween. They go to get a map for the area around Thirdrima, and Sunraku gets all sorts of weird looks. Moments later, Sunraku can't hold back anymore and says just how much he hates the bed sheet's costume cuts him looking thing. Sunraku comes down as he realizes that at least he got everything he needed. Sunraku points out that Emol runs through magic power really fast when in human form, as she chugs down another potion. They need to get moving to the next area, and they have 3 routes they can take. One is the Felfate Caldera, a place where water has collected in the crater of a long-extinct volcano to form a lake. The second is the Prismatic Forest Grotto, a maze of caverns overgrowing with plant life. The last route is Iron Ruins of Divinity, ruins from the era of divinity that gets its name from its many hovering iron boards. Sunraku realizes the seriousness of this decision and tells Emol to quiet down when she recommends going to the Felfate Caldera. Sunraku decides to go through the Prismatic Forest and explains his brilliant decision. He declares that they must avoid the Ruins of Divinity at all costs, because he believes it's a trap. While Sunraku is busy complimenting his own genius, Emol notices as a person she kind of remembers, watching them. This armored person looks like a creepy stalker, and Sunraku's shocked to see who it is. Story continues. We see the ship parked somewhere, and we meet the leader of the clan of Shurikai called Orsalot. He is disappointed in his clan for failing him and disgracing their clan. They apologize and blame their failure on the arrival of the attack master. Orsalot doesn't want to hear any excuses though. The secret of a unique scenario was on the line. They should have expected top players to show up. Pensilgan is part of this clan and fearlessly tells Orsalot that he should have just done it himself. He says that he was busy and explains that the rabbit they are after is definitely the key to a bunch of secret stuff. Orsalot wants answers, so he tells the group to get them out of Sunraku by any means necessary. Pensilgan on things that they should be going after unique monsters instead, but Orsalot reminds her that these monsters aren't made to be beatable. As of right now, they're the only ones that know the unique monster spawn condition. Players get experience just by encountering the beasts, so if they plan it correctly, they can use it to get way stronger. Everyone agrees not to go after the monster, but Pensilgan thinks that they're all useless. Orsalot tries to stop her from leaving, but she has important things to do. A Shurikai was always widely hated on, so they decided to thrive on hate. However, the last patch made player killing much riskier, so the clan has changed. Pensilgan can't believe that she's putting her neck on the line for one little NPC, and states that it's a huge gamble for her win or lose. She is willing to sacrifice everything to bury the unique monster, one of the 7 colossi called Weathermon the Tomb Guard. Back with our bird-headed hero, Sunraku was worried that Saijiro Zero was there to get revenge for stepping on him. Saijiro Zero moves towards them, but Sunraku is terrified and tells Emil that it's time to run. Nearby members of a Shurikai are looking for Sunraku. Sunraku runs near them, but they just think he is some crazy dude wearing a bed sheet. Unfortunately, players' names hover above their head, so the guys notice that it's Sunraku. They won't be confused by his ghost costume and chase after him. He is causing quite a scene, but he doesn't have much of a choice as the knight is following him. Sunraku tells Emil that it's time to head to the next area, and the Ashurakai guys determine that Sunraku will be heading to the Iron Ruins. They contact their other members and prepare to have an ambush ready at the exit gate. Emil reminds Sunraku that he said they would be going to the Prismatic Forest Grotto, and he explains that he's going in the wrong direction to fake everyone out. He knows that they will be waiting for him at the gate, but he plans to lose them in an alley. His plan works as they lose sight of Sunraku and decide to just wait at the gate towards the Iron Ruins. Our genius protagonist disguises himself perfectly using his bedsheet and teaches Emil thing or two about deception. They eventually reach their real destination, but are stunned when Saijiro Zero appears behind them. Sunraku still thinks the giant knight is a guy and fears the worst. He gets a bit of relief though when Saijiro Zero just sends him a friend request. Saijiro Zero mumbles that she wants to be friends, but her voice is so low that where Sunraku can't hear a single word. Sunraku begins to wonder if she's a girl, but becomes skeptical. He thinks he might be trying to get his guard down, but realizes that he would have been a goner already if the attack master wanted. Sunraku has some serious trust issues and wonders if she's trying to befriend him so that he will spill the beans about the scenario. He determines that the giant knight must be plotting something, so she was able to see through his disguise and determine his destination. Sunraku was confident though, since he is a gamer who has been through all kinds of PvP before. He is ready for anything, so he plans to play right to her hands, and he is certain that he can still beat her. Sunraku accepts the friend request, and the little sucker's dream has finally come true. We then see that her finding him was complete luck, but she couldn't be happier. She tells Sunraku that she can help him through the game, but someone has seriously broken Sunraku's trust before. He takes her simple offer as proof that she is trying to get him in her debt, so she can demand information from him. Sunraku declines her offer by saying that he doesn't want to get carried, so she apologizes and emphatically wishes him luck. Sunraku apologizes for using her giant head as a step stool before, but she says it's okay and he can do it anytime. They say goodbye, and Sunraku thinks it's odd how she backed off so quickly. Emil thinks the knight looks pretty powerful, and Sunraku determines that Saijiro Zero is probably around 4 or 5 times stronger than him. Emil says that Sunraku has a stronger Vorpal soul though, but our Birdman has no clue what a Vorpal soul is. Saijiro Zero watches him leave, and Sunraku decides to just put the whole encounter behind him. Rei realizes that the girl he was with is an NPC, but doesn't care about anything when she remembers that where Sunraku finally accepted her friend request. The Ashurakai boys realize that they have been tricked and decide to head towards the Prismatic Forest. They spot the terrifying attack master just standing there though, and decide to run away instead. At the forest, our duo can finally relax, so Emil reverts back to being a bunny and our hero goes back to being a bird. The tunnel is covered in glowing moss, and Sunraku explains that he has seen tons of things while coming out of tunnels and other games. Guns aimed at him and beautiful shooting stars. However, this amazing forest trumps it all. This site is beautiful, and the forest is home to very unique creatures. These include empire work bees and some insects that double as storage. Bugs are taking each other out left and right, and Sunraku gets excited as nothing beats entering a new area. Sunraku is a little low on cash from stocking up on items, so he decides to take down one of the storage bugs in hopes of finding a valuable item. He fails miserably though, and points out that the insect is pretty light on its wings. Despite its gigantic pot belly, it's still too slow for a bird like him, and Sunraku destroys it. Luckily, he was right. As long as he doesn't damage the stomach, he can snag it as an item. Emil can't contain her excitement, and Sunraku decides that they should keep gathering up as many item drops as they can. Sunraku spots their next prey, and Emil surprised to see that he brought a throwing knife at some point. Melee is his only combat option, but he got pretty traumatized from getting pooped on by the poop bird in the arena. The throwing knife is a consumable item, but it's a great way to attack from a distance. Sunraku uses the knife to attack a flower, but he knew all along that it was a camouflaged mantis. He demands that it turn into loot for him, and he destroys it. Emil cheers on her hero, and Sunraku explains that the mantis are pretty easy to defeat without their camouflage ambushing tricks. Sunraku checks his inventory to find that he has gotten a ton of loot already, but there's one creature he hasn't defeated yet. Just then, the ground shakes, is that creature just so happens to appear. It's a giant beetle and it's at least 5 meters long. It's drinking tree sap on the Empire Bee's turf, but the bees aren't having any of it. The bees attack the lone beetle and Sunraku is amazed, since they are clearly following their queen's orders. Our MC begins a play-by-play of the fight and points out that the beetle is hanging in there, and Mol is next to do some color commentary, but she isn't too good at improvisation. The fierce battle rages on, and the beetle uses a torn to attack, while making its way towards the bee's nest, and Mol is finally ready to jump in with commentary, but simply says that the beetle is big. Our MC steps up with more intense commentary and points out that the bees have created several weak points in the beetle's arm. The queen bee is just about to command her army to finish the fight, but the beetle shockingly goes straight for the queen. The beetle, which is waiting to get into the queen's range and is now victorious, with no leader, the rest of the bees scatter and the beetle goes back to munching on its meal. Sunraku admires the warrior beetle, but this beetle is insane and it goes after them next. They run for their lives and Sunraku tries to explain that he just wanted to collect the loot that the bees dropped, and Mol points out that the beetle must have thought that they wanted his sap, and Sunraku comes up with an idea. He tosses his stomach sack, causing it to burst on a mantis, and the beetle goes after it instead. The tables have turned now, so Sunraku targets the cracks in the beetle's armor. He lands a ton of critical strikes thanks to his good luck, and the once proud warrior beetle is now a pile of nothing. Sunraku has an inventory full of stuff now, so he put the hold on collecting more. Mol didn't like the idea of exploiting the labor of all the bees, but Sunraku explains that they live in a buggy bug world. Sunraku remembers that the area boss there's a spider, and Mol explains it's called the clown spider. There are spider webs everywhere now, so Sunraku assumes that they must be getting closer to the boss. Sunraku decides to fearlessly enter a cave, but we see that the terrifying spider is waiting for him. Story continues. A quick look into the recent past shows another group, and one girl is terrified that their leader wants to fight the area boss so soon. Their leader tells her to quiet down as he is confident they can win, but this guy just ends up getting stuck on a spider web. The girls become terrified and we see why, as they have just encountered the horrifying clown spider. Back to the present, Sunraku makes his way toward the cave. However, he is not allowed to enter as other players are currently fighting the area boss. The pink-haired guy from earlier comes crashing down and laments how he will have to climb all the way back up again. Pinky is still confident that he can turn this terrible situation around, but he just ends up getting flattened like a pancake. Sunraku says a prayer for the fallen adventurer and he is ready for his turn now. The innocent little Mol is shocked that he's able to move on so fast, but Sunraku reminds her that players will just respawn right back in third Rima. They make their way into the cave and find the corpses of the poor players that came before for them. Sunraku shows his supreme confidence as he tells Mol to stay back. He plans to beat the clown spider all by himself without dying or taking damage. Mol thinks our boy is absolutely insane, but he has already made his decision and he calls out the area boss. The higher-up broker who climbs the denser the webs get. Luckily he has some new skills after leveling up in the arena. He tries to decide which would be best to use in this situation, but he must quickly turn his attention to avoid a falling boulder. He uses his new skill called One Boat Leap and he's able to easily avoid it. Mol just barely manages to survive and warns our hero to be careful with the webs in front of him. She fears that he will get stuck to them, but is shocked when he doesn't. Our boy is some kind of spider expert as he reveals that horizontal radial lines of spider webs aren't sticky. Some more rocks come crashing down, but he should be fine as long as he pays attention to where he is stepping. His carefulness combined with an acceleration skill allows him to climb much faster, and Mol is left to dodge falling rocks to save her life. Sunraku finally comes face to face with the clown spider and dodges a few of its pitiful attacks. Sunraku then uses a new skill called Loop Slash and slices off one of the spider's legs. That's clearly not enough to win, so he uses a skill called Rush Slash to do way more damage. The ugly spider isn't able to keep its balance, so it falls, and Sunraku determines that falling from this height would deal quite the fall damage. The spider tries to poop out some web to save itself, but our boy should step down instantly with his throwing knife. The spider slams down into the ground and Sunraku already knows that it won't be enough to end its life. A look at the ceiling shows that this spider has a collection of heavy stuff to drop, so Sunraku comes up with an idea. The clown spider gets ready for round 2, but our boy has already started dropping boulders and trees to crush the spider. The spider's getting collapsed on and Mol celebrates as it really does seem like her hero will beat the spider unscathed. The spider begins to get up and Mol wonders what our crazy protagonist is doing as he begins to descend. It turns out the Sunraku isn't satisfied by winning this way, since if he can't even beat a mere area boss head-on, then he won't be good enough to take down the Lycagon. Sunraku comes crashing down on the spider to land the critical strike and the area boss completely explodes, and Mol then comes to celebrate as Sunraku announced the winner. He beat it just like he promised, no damage and no death. Just then he gets a message from the Pencil Knight, but he isn't the only one. Some blonde girl got the message too. She is pretty disappointed since she heard a lot of talk about bosses being tough to solo, but she just did it to the Mud Digger. This player is actually Katsuo and she looks forward to something that will actually challenge her. Back at the game shop, Rei excitedly tells Mana that she doesn't have to stalk or Sunraku like a creep anymore because they are friends now. Rei gushes over her crush since he was able to skip past First Town and has somehow brought with him an untamable Vorpal bunny. Rei gets excited when she thinks Sunraku has arrived at the shop, but it's just some random guy. It turns out that Sunraku hasn't come to the shop in several days, so Mana assumes that he is playing SLF. Sunraku is a pretty unpredictable guy, so she assumes that he will be the first one to defeat a unique monster. Rei walks home but is stunned when she just so happens to find our boy minding his own business in another store. Rei instantly goes back to her stalking ways and watches him closely. In a magazine, Sunraku reads about his friend Katsuo's interview. Katsuo was a pro gamer but also a massive trash talker. Sunraku also reads that a huge summer update will be coming to SLF, and he thinks about how he just had his meeting with Pensilgan. A look back at the meeting inside another game shows Pensilgan pointing out that it's been so long since her guests have visited. The last time they all saw each other was when they attacked her castle and took on the 80 players guarding it. Her guests Sunraku and Katsuo. Those two reminisce about how fun it was to destroy her castle, and they really dig in as they point out how Pentagon is still really butthurt about it. Pensilgan gets their attention as she has had enough and reminds them that they have business to discuss. She gets right to the point and asks them to team up with her to beat a specific unique monster, Weatherman the Tomb Guard. Those two pondered for a moment but then express how shocked they are. It's a unique monster just like the Lycagon where Sunraku fought, so Katsuo was really interested in unique monster. Pensilgan explains just how serious she is, but Sunraku thought they were just meeting to talk about fighting a high-level clan or something. Sunraku points out that it's just the three of them, and wonders if she really thinks they can do it themselves, as he has no clue about this Weatherman monster. Pensilgan explains that Weatherman is not the kind of guy that can be taken down with numbers. She tried with the team of Ashura Kai's 15 best members, but they failed. It's the type of monster that gets stronger against more opponents, but that isn't all. Pensilgan then refuses to tell them more until they agree to join her. Her plan is to attack 2 weeks from now, at night right after they push out the massive summer event. Sunraku thinks it over and wonders why she's asking two players that just started playing the game, when she could just ask a couple of max-level players. Pensilgan seems to be able to read his mind as she explains that their low levels don't matter, what she needs is pure gaming skills. That is why she chose Katsuo, who is a pro gamer, and Sunraku, who has godly skills as a trash game player. Sunraku wonders if their skills are really that comparable and gets upset when his buddy Katsuo doesn't think so. Pensilgan just wants their answers and is open to hearing what they would want as an extra reward. Sunraku says that he understands the situation well, but he can tell that she is still hiding something. He doesn't agree to anything yet and tells her that she needs to tell them her secret. Pensilgan tells them what it is, but we don't get the privilege of hearing it. In the real world, Sunraku leaves the shop and Rei calls out to him from her hiding spot. Sunraku was caught off guard and just remembers her as being some girl in one of his classes a year ago. Rei awkwardly just stares at him and Sunraku desperately tries to remember her name. Luckily he remembers at the last second and Rei points out how big of a coincidence it is for them to meet there. Our boy was just buying typical gamer supplies and Rei was heading to judo practice. Rei brings up how Mana told her that he is playing SLF and she tells him how she is playing also. She would like to play together sometime, but Sunraku gets distracted by a message. It's an urgent message from Pensilgan, so he tells Rei goodbye and bless out of there. Rei is just glad that she was able to form some words to talk to Sunraku. Sunraku bought so many energy drinks, which means he must be planning to have a long gaming session, so she hopes to meet him in game again. At home, Sunraku loads up SLF and wonders if he should have asked for Rei's in-game's name. In the game, Emil greets him a little too closely and Sunraku reveals that he has something to tell her. Sunraku reveals that he will be fighting Weatherman the Tomb Guard in 2 weeks, and he is thinking over removing Emil from the party during that time. Emil absolutely loses her mind after hearing the name Weatherman and instantly rushes off to go tell her mafia boss father. Sunraku has no clue what that was all about but has no time to find out since he needs to meet with Pensilgan. Look back at their meeting, shows the Sunraku asks Pensilgan about bringing along Emol, who is an NPC. Pensilgan is of course familiar with the little bunny and tells him that if he really cares about Emol then he should take her off his party. She then shockingly reveals that in SLF once an NPC dies, they won't get respawned. Story continues. We see that Emol's father has some Sunraku to hear his plan straight from his mouth. He wants to know if it's true that Sunraku plans to pick a fight with the one known as the Death Defier. Sunraku instantly realizes that the sudden event must be important. The best tactic he can use right now to talk to this mafia boss is to role play in this scenario and its characters. If he does it right, he might get some valuable information about Weathermon. Sunraku determines that he must persuade Vash to get on his side, and the key will be to use the word Vorpal Soul. Vash minds Sunraku that he is too weak to take on Weathermon. Sunraku dramatically reveals that he isn't taking on this challenge because he thinks he can win. He explains that he will only be acting as a support as his teammate will be doing most of the fighting. Sunraku explains that a group of murderers are taking advantage of Weathermon for selfish gain. They rack up tons of experience just by encountering him over and over again. Sunraku's teammate is the defector of this group and she wants to end the fight once and for all. Sunraku explains that she has taken every measure to assure victory, but Vash counters that it doesn't matter how many measures they take, if they aren't strong enough then they're just going on a mission of self-destruction. Death missions are not what having a Vorpal Soul is all about, and Vash taught him better than that. Sunraku has no intention of losing and explains that he and his friends simply want to support their leader's will to win against Weathermon. Sunraku explains that coming to her aid is really just upholding his own Vorpal Soul. He tells Vash that all he needs is 2 weeks. 2 weeks for Vash to take Sunraku, who acknowledges he's an inexperienced fool and turns him into a worthy challenger against a strong foe. Vash seems to get convinced as he begins talking about honor. He states that a certain man is very awkward and Sunraku wonders if he is talking about Weathermon. This man is overly serious, never knowing when to stop. He lost his wife over a little lie, and because of that he is cursed with an undying body. He is now just a walking corpse, unable to even put himself to rest. For that reason someone needs to beat him down and put him to sleep. Vash swore not to lay upon this man himself, but since Sunraku was so insistent then he won't stop him. On top of that, Vash even has his beloved daughter insisting. Vash then tells Sunraku follow him as he agrees to give him a hand. Sunraku was then shocked when they arrive at a blacksmith's forge. He celebrates for a moment as he did a good job in getting to the next stage of the Rabatuza event. Vash calls upon the blacksmith named Bilak, who is also another one of Emol's siblings. That's already 3 kids so far. So Sunraku wonders if all the bunny is in Rabatuza, all Vash's children. Sunraku is introduced and Bilak says he looks just like a person named Evil. Vash takes a look at Sunraku's Vorpal weapons and is glad to see that Sunraku was accepted by his weapons nicely. Vash states that he will be ascending the weapons, but Bilak is shocked to hear that. She can't believe that Vash will be wielding the hammer himself, but Vash explains that he must. If Sunraku was going to take on the Death Defier, he can't just sit there and do nothing about it. Bilak becomes extremely excited and goes to get the forge started. Vash asks Sunraku if he has any good materials that he got after a difficult battle, so Sunraku searches through his inventory. He eventually finds something and hands Vash a quad beetle shell. It was able to withstand the Empire bees for a really long time, so it should be good material. Vash agrees and gets himself ready. Bilak explains that Sunraku should consider himself very lucky since her boss has not held a hammer in several years. The last time was even before he became the king of rabbits. Emol reveals that Vash is actually a skilled blacksmith and he is not an ordinary one either. His expertise, some forging, allows him to call himself a master craftsman, and his know-how on Age of Divinity's forgery makes him an ancient craftsman. As a master of both, he is a divine craftsman, the supreme blacksmith second to none. Emol becomes excited as her father's ready to begin. Vash hammers away at Sunraku's weapons, and Sunraku, surprised to see magic circles appear. They pop out with every strike and are then absorbed into the weapon. Bilak reveals that ascending involves reading the memories and experience that weapons earn in battle, remolding them into what they are meant to be. Put differently, it's a technique that ascends weapons to their true form. Weapons with Vorpal in their name remember battles against strong opponents. Vash is taking their memories of fighting Sunraku's hand and the power of the Shuanfu instilled in the material he gave Vash. He then mixes those two elements together to change the weapon's form. Bilak points out the Sunraku fought the like again evenly, so she can't wait to see what weapon will result from that. Vash begins to sing and Sunraku must be told to quiet down as this is a very important moment. The little rabbits are not to witness the master at work and Vash just keeps wailing on the weapon. After some time, Vash finally proclaims that the verbal choppers have acquired their true form and name. They are now the Moonblade Waxing and the Moonblade Waning weapons. There are 2 swords from one blade, and only when they are paired together will they show their true value. Sunraku is of course excited about this amazing feat and immediately goes to check their stats. For the waxing one, when used in a battle with a higher level enemy, it decreases the wielder's HP upon landing a critical hit. However, it also applies a damage bonus to his next attack. As for the waning blade, it restores HP under the same condition. This makes it clear that the blades really do complement each other. Sunraku then reads that a fusion gauge will be filled up after landing several critical strikes. Sunraku can't believe how awesome that is, since it means that the blades can fuse together. Sunraku wants to try them right away but sadly finds that he has insufficient stats to equip them. Sunraku calms himself down from the disappointment as he realizes that it's a simple math problem. The required stats are 150 and he is currently at 57. Players get 5 points per level. Sunraku gets really depressed as he realizes that this means he will need to be level 50 before he can use them. The others try to console him, but it's no use as he wanted to use his sweet new weapons now. In third Rima, Sunraku arrives late to his meeting with Pencildawn and Katsuo. They are furious since he isn't. It's a little late, as they have been waiting for 3 hours. Sunraku explains that he was busy with that unique scenario and kept going in it because Weathermon came up. Pencildawn agrees to let him off the hook for being late as long as he reveals any information he received. Katsuo can't believe it and Sunraku points out how bold Katsuo is for selecting the blonde girl as his avatar. Katsuo states that he doesn't need pointers on character design from the guy who looks like a bird and calls him an infamous criminal. Pencildawn intentionally had to pick a place for the meeting that had low traffic because Sunraku has so many people coming after him. Sunraku then catches them up on everything he learned about Weathermon the Tomb Guard. Katsuo wonders if they are dealing with some kind of undead monster and Pencildawn recalls that Weathermon's movements did seem a bit janky. She assumed he was a cyborg type, but being undead makes more sense. Pencildawn strangely states that she has something to take care of and instructs them to meet later that night. She also instructs them to grind experience in the Iron Ruins in the meantime and gives them a fishing rod and a map. The guys have no clue how the items are supposed to help, but Pencildawn reveals that it will all make sense when they get there. Pencildawn prepares to leave, but she notices the strange little bunny on Sunraku's back. She noticed something was strange the second Sunraku walked in and wondered if he really thought that the disguise was really working. Sunraku does his best acting job as he acts clueless to what she is talking about and simply explains that he's just following the latest fashion trend. Pencildawn is then shocked to see that he did manage to fool at least one person as Katsuo wonders what the fashion trend is. Pencildawn decides to drop the issue and just leaves. The two guys excitedly get ready to do some grinding, but Sunraku must take a moment to find the safest route. Katsuo was all hyped up but gets discouraged since he now has to sneak around to since he is with Sunraku. Emal gets distressed as she reveals to Sunraku that she's getting a serious earache and would like to move around for a bit. Katsuo finally realizes that something is off and becomes startled when he sees that Sunraku's equipment is talking. The jig is up, so Sunraku lets Emal free and he states that he was just trying to see how long it would take for Katsuo to notice. Katsuo realizes that it's the NPC from the unique scenario. As he takes a closer look, he wishes he had one, but Sunraku tells him to get his own. The guys finally arrive at the entrance to the ruins and Sunraku explains that he wants to get to level 50 as soon as possible. Katsuo reveals that this is his first time in a party and it's actually the first Sunraku has partied with another player as well. They reach the entrance to the Iron Ruins of Divinity and they both become excited as it clearly has a different vibe than the rest of the game. Story continues. We see into the past as our group has a little strategy meeting. Pencildawn explains that at the start of battle Weathermon activates a skill. It sets the max level of all characters in the area except for him to level 50. The boys are shocked as the Weathermon is an insane level 200. This is why their levels don't really matter against him and player's skill is key. The guys are still pretty new to the game, so they at least need to grind to level 50. Back to the present. The two guys enter the Iron Ruins of Divinity. They search for a hidden area that is perfect for grinding that Pencildawn told them about, but it's taking longer than expected to find it. It's like a whole different game compared to outside of the ruins, and black panels are sliding around all over the place. Sunraku, always the trash game player, points out that they could probably do some real cool stuff if they glitch out the platforms. Katsuo knows his friend well and tells him that he needs to wash away all the trash game stuff in his brain. This place reminds Katsuo of a god-tier sci-fi game, but Sunraku just wants to know what level he is. Katsuo reveals that he's level 25 and Sunraku mocks him for still being in the 20s. Sunraku is level 31, so Katsuo quick to point out that they aren't that far apart, and Mole unintentionally roasts Katsuo as she explains that Sunraku was just worried about how weak and frail he is. Just then Emol warns the boys to be careful as some big thing called the Giant Suppression Dome almost crushes them. It's clearly an enemy, but Katsuo comfortably tells Sunraku to sit this one out. Emol wonders if Katsuo really okay, but Sunraku confident in his friend's abilities. Katsuo prepares to fight and explains that no matter how low a level you are, SLF lets players stand a chance with skill alone. He destroys the drone with just one punch and pressing his teammates. Katsuo explains that the red glowing on his hands is a spell that gives bonuses to strength and vitality. More enemies appear and he goes on to explain that he selected a Spirit Fist user monk. He cannot equip weapons, but in exchange he can give himself buffs and beat things down with his fists. As for his build, he put most of his stats into HP and vitality. Katsuo finishes up destroying the enemies and can tell Sunraku's build is just by knowing him. Katsuo guesses that Sunraku was a glass cannon with the strength and agility focus. He is partially right, but Sunraku corrects him as he is a luck and agility focused fighter. Little Emol corrects him even further and explains that Sunraku has a Vorpal soul, but still nobody knows what that is. They continue on their long journey following their precise instructions on the map that Pencildawn gave them. It has them go in several directions and through many rooms. They are all amazed by the person who made the map, since it must have required a lot of patience. The final instructions are to jump down a hole, but they pause as they wonder if it's some kind of prank to make themselves end life. Katsuo doesn't want the glass cannon Sunraku to instant die going down there, so he takes the lead. Emol says that Katsuo one brave lady, but Sunraku tries to explain that Katsuo was actually a guy. Katsuo tells them to come down because Sunraku loser. While doing so, Sunraku gets furious and jumps down ready to get some revenge. He quickly forgets the insult, however, when he sees that they have arrived at the hidden area. According to Pencildawn's instructions, they will be able to fish up a monster called the Lifestyle Lake Serpent in the lake. Katsuo wonders if they will really be able to catch anything with their puny little rods, but they decide to give it a try. The two friends are super competitive and decide to compete to see who can catch more. Sunraku's father used to take him fishing all the time, so he knows all the tips and tricks. Sunraku quickly gets a bite, but Katsuo points out that it probably has more to do with all his luck. Sunraku only manages to get a salmon, but everyone is shocked when Katsuo pulls out his giant serpent. The Lifestyle Lake Serpent is a powerful beast, so Sunraku decides that it's time to unveil his new weapon. Katsuo reminds Sunraku that he's too low of a level to equip the moon blades, but Seeker Sunraku reveals that he had more weapons made. These are called the Empire Between Blades. The serpent begins attacking, and Emol explains to Katsuo that she had her sister make these blades for Sunraku. A look back shows the little bunny completing the blades made from the Empire Between materials Sunraku brought her. Bylak get upset when Sunraku almost forgets her name, so he realizes that he might have to manage affection levels with rabbits other than Emol and Vash. Sunraku panics as he starts getting traumatizing flashbacks from a trash game dating simulator. In that dating simulator, he had to balance the affection levels of a bunch of different girls. If he made the slightest mistake, he will get the bad ending where all the girls move to Italy to apprentice at a pizzeria. His character named Sunraku Picklefish would have his adolescence crushed beneath a pizza stone. Sunraku quickly snaps out of his depression and compliments Bylak on making his new blades. She reveals that his right-hand blade has a special attribute. We then watch as he puts it to work against the serpent. The guys do their best against it, but they struggle. Their levels are just too low to put more than a scratch on the creature. Sunraku explains that some weapons, skills, spells and monster attacks have a corrosion attribute. If enough damage is dealt to a certain part of an avatar, it'll cause visible damage and create a weak point there. Bylak explained that his right-hand weapon doesn't corrode in the normal way. It infects the part Sunraku attacks and corrodes it over time, more like a corrosive poison, with the corrode attribute building up and warming its way in little by little. If he keeps stealing more corrosive poison with repeated strikes, it breaks through the enemy's debuff resistance and causes the corrosive attribute to show itself faster. Sunraku finally manages to create a weak spot, so Katsuo focuses all his strength to attack it. They finally manage to hurt the thing, so Emol wants to join the fight. The serpent quickly targets her and Sunraku can't get to her in time, but Katsuo jumps in to take the hit instead. Luckily, Katsuo survives because he built himself like a tank. Katsuo stuns the serpent, so they all combine their power to attack the beast and they finally win the fight. The fight was definitely worth it as it gave a lot of experience and the boys are already starting to level up. Katsuo goes up 4 levels and unlocks a bunch of skills. He wonders if he can link the skills, but Sunraku assumes that he's mistaking SLF for a different game. Sunraku doesn't even know what skill linking is, but Katsuo was certain it must be possible since SLF is a game all about skills. Katsuo explains that he should have learned that in first Tia, but Sunraku skip right past that starter town. Katsuo then explains that skills with proficiency levels can be linked up at a facility called the Skill Garden that lets them create new combo skills. Sunraku now realizes why some of his skills were changing names, since that just meant that they could now be linked. There is a lot more that can be done at the Skill Garden, so Sunraku freaks out after not knowing any of it. Katsuo then mentions sub-jobs and guilds, which makes them freak out even more since he missed so much from just skipping one little town. Sunraku decides that he won't get anywhere by being depressed and decides to continue grinding. Sometime later the boys regroup with Pencildawn. She is happy with their progress as Katsuo is now level 40 and Sunraku level 42. That's a lot of progress in such a short amount of time, so they're ahead of schedule. Katsuo tries to explain how little Sunraku knew about stuff, but Sunraku him down. Katsuo was pretty impressed with Emol's power and Sunraku reveals that his precious little bunny friend is already level 56. They're still pretty pressed for time overall, which is why Pencildawn had to use an expensive tent that double as a safe point. Pencildawn then reveals that it's time for them to go meet someone and this hour of night is the only time they can do it. This person is a unique NPC named Setsuna and they need to speak to her in order to fight Weathermon. Elsewhere in the night, we see this Setsuna person as she sings by a tree. Story continues. Sunraku and his friends they make their way through the prismatic forest. Pencildawn explains that they have to find a dark spot amongst all the luminescent moss. When they find the spot, she presses on it and it reveals the secret passage. Sunraku is upset that he passed the forest without finding this area, but Pencildawn explains that finding these time-specific hidden areas is luck of the draw. She even just happened to stumble upon this place. Sunraku looks down on those with less luck than him, but Katsuo takes exception to this stupid face he is making. Pencildawn tells them to stop their little comedy act as they have reached their destination. This place is filled with beautiful flowers, but the team thinks that it's pretty creepy. Singing can be heard nearby and Katsuo brings her attention to the singing girl. This girl is transparent, so our bird-brain protagonist wonders if it's a bug in this god-tier game. Katsuo pities his trash game-loving friend since his mind always assumes bugs over plot reasons. Pencildawn greets this NPC named Setsuna and Sunraku takes note of how her clothes don't seem like they belong in a fantasy world. He wonders if she is from the setting's Age of Antiquity the Divinity. If so, she could hold the key to the unique scenario that he unlocked. Sunraku decides to introduce himself, painting himself as a man of 100 skills, but Pencildawn interrupts him and introduces her friends as Stooge 1 and Stooge 2. They are her ace in the hole to finally put Weathermon to rest. Emol and Katsuo give their names, but Sunraku wants another shot at his introduction. Pencildawn admits that her new team doesn't seem like much now, but she plans to train them up before the battle. This ghost lady then says some surprising stuff as she has never met someone with studies presence applied twice when referring to Sunraku. On top of that, he is also accompanied by Cinderella's child. Sunraku has no clue what she is talking about, but Setsuna just says that he reminds her of someone she used to know a long time ago. She thanks him for reviving some long-lost memories, but Sunraku is still completely lost. It's time to get down to business though, so screen pops up prompting them to begin a new unique scenario. Those two accept, so Setsuna reveals that Weathermon was her dearest love. They had a minor misunderstanding and she passed away. Since then, all Weathermon has done his entire life is guard her grave. Setsuna has no clue how much time has passed since then, but the next thing she knew, she was in this ghost-like state. Setsuna feels no resentment about the way her life ended, but she believes that things that end should lie in the past. They shouldn't tie down someone's present or their future. She can't stand knowing that Weathermon remains tied down to her past. Weathermon used the spell she created to create a barrier around her grave and did some other complicated stuff to make it impossible for anyone to reach its location. However, on the night of a new moon, when the moon loses all its light, a crack forms in the barrier. Katsuo puts it pretty bluntly and determines that all they have to do is jump through this crack and fight Weathermon. Setsuna has told them everything and just wishes that they will finally be able to put him to rest. Pencildawn tells her that they are nothing like the losers who tried before and assures her that they will put an end to all this suffering. Sunraku and Katsuo were stunned, since this Pencildawn is nothing like the Pencildawn they know. The Pencildawn they know once dragged an NPC king behind her carriage in order to lure her enemies. She is also the Pencildawn, the Titan NPC princess to a chandelier to bait players into trying to rescue her, and the fact that she is having a pleasant conversation with an NPC right now is unbelievable to them. They mockingly wonder if she has developed some kind of soul, but Pencildawn makes them pay the price for laughing at her. Pencildawn wishes she could PK them a bunch of times, but they don't have time as they must prepare for the fight with Weathermon. Pencildawn reveals that she does like to play the game straight sometimes, something about Setsuna and her story has her invested. Pencildawn seems almost ashamed when she admits to this, but Sunraku thinks it's totally fine. Getting serious about a game is a great thing in his eyes, since everything is more fun when a person takes it seriously. Katsuo completely agrees and points out that it's pretty much his job since he is a pro gamer. Sunraku is always looking for a way to mock his friend, so he points out that Katsuo is a pro gamer, but he still hasn't found a single unique thing for himself in SLF. The guys begin fighting and are only stopped when Pencildawn laughs at them for reminding her that they are just as stupid as she is. Pencildawn then gets serious and reminds them that they are facing a monster that forces players to level down to level 50. That is something unprecedented in boss battle history, but she is confident that they can beat him. They all agree to take their mission seriously and join hands. Sometime later, Sunraku wakes up and explains that he has been grinding extremely hard ever since he met Setsuna. Every day he has been having late nights. He has finally managed to reach level 51 and Katsuo was at level 46. Now he needs to work on his skills, and Emil told them that there was a skilled garden for linking skills and Rabatuza. Sunraku remembers how Pencildawn told them that this fight will depend completely on their skills, so he is determined to improve them. Sunraku is then greeted by his mother Aka, who's glad that he has been keeping up with their agreement over summer break. Sunraku points out that he didn't really have a choice, since he didn't want her physically log him out of his game anymore. Sunraku's younger sister Rumi is really upset about their mother keeping her pet bugs in the kitchen and notices that Sunraku checking out one of the models in her magazine. The model's name is Towa, and according to Rumi, she is the greatest model to ever exist. This Towa name has something to do with the Setsuna name, and we learn that Pencildawn is actually Towa. Rumi explains that she has been doing some part-time modeling herself, but she will have to ask her dad to get some more publicity. Their father just so happens to return home and he shows off the gigantic fish that he caught. His name is Senji, and his kids are disappointed that they will have to eat fish for every meal again for a while. In their household, they have an agreement, a bit of a rule. For breakfast and dinner on Sundays, they have to eat and talk together as a family. This rule was necessary since if it didn't exist then they would all get lost in their own hobbies and never see each other. Senji needs to clean the fish as soon as possible, but Rumi desperately tells him to do it in the kitchen. Sunraku wishes sure that they might seem weird to the outside world, but he thinks his family has just found out a way to make things work for themselves. Sunraku then decides that it's time to head back into SLF. As there are only 2 weeks left until the battle with Weathermon, it will definitely be a difficult fight, especially after the information that Pencildawn gave him. Weathermon is a non-stop source of single-digit frame attacks, instant death moves and area attacks. However, this information made him realize where the perfect place to practice will be, the trash game where constant glitches make all attacks come at crazy speed. The game is called Berserk Online Passion. Sunraku enters this game, also known as Burp, and points out how it's always so deserted. No one is even there, so Sunraku decides that he will just fight the final boss of the story mode. Just then he runs into a random player named Dragonfly. This kid is really eager for a fight and explains that he is still new to the game. He hasn't even beat the final boss yet and would love if Sunraku could give him some tips. This game is pretty old, so Sunraku can't believe this kid is a new player and even calls him an endangered species. Sunraku acknowledges that this fight won't be the best for his training, but he can't pass up an opportunity to fight such a rare specimen. This is of course a trash game, so they agree that glitches can be used in their fight. Sunraku analyzes this kid and determines that he has an all-around build. This is the type that generates a lot of glitches, but Sunraku assumes that he won't know how to use them. The battle starts, but Sunraku was instantly shocked when Dragonfly charges in. Sunraku reminds himself that this kid is a beginner, so he probably won't be using typical strategies. Sunraku is then surprised even further when this kid draws his fist back just before unleashing the punch motion. This is a technique that allows a player to generate a bug that extends her arm like rubber. If the hit lands, it deals with 2-hit combo with double the damage. Its name is Pile Bunker, and Dragonfly is shocked to see that he missed. Sunraku explains that he used a bug move called Yo-Yo and it throws off a player's avatar texture and hitbox instantly. Sunraku acknowledges that this kid can use some basic bugs, but he explains that there is way more to this game than that. Burp is filled with bugs that players have discovered through trial and research, and he plans to give this kid a full demonstration. That brings the episode to an end. Thanks for watching. Want next part? Subscribe the channel and turn on notification bell.